Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast, is brought to you by, well, you. If you want to learn how to support our show, go to patreon.com/laststandmedia. Greetings and salutations. Welcome to Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast. This is episode number 250. My name is Colin Moriarty. I'm joined as always by my son, Chris Raygun. Chris Mike Tyson Raygun. How about that? You like that?
Yeah, why not? Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll accept it.
You need the tribal tattoo on your face. For the
Felonies
fight.
aside. Felonies aside.
That's right. Maybe I'll Sharpie a tribal tattoo across my face.
Be awesome if he was there as like one of the analysts. You know,
That'd be so bizarre. I don't know.
I would love to meet him.
That'd be so embarrassing to do any of that stuff in front of somebody who's like actually a professional. Oh my God.
It's kind of what you've been doing with your training though, like your really rigorous training, right?
That is true.
You became you were a fake boxer and now you're a real boxer. You know,
I'm at least like vaguely adept. You know,
you've
metamorphosed.
metamorphosed.
Yeah.
How would you say that? Metamorphosis.
Metamorphosized?
That's metamorphosized. That's right.
Is that right?
Man,
That sounds fake.
that sounds fake, but I don't care. I'm a little out of it right now for two reasons. Number one, just I took a bong rip 15 minutes ago. But number two,
Woo!
is that the pool's getting open today in the backyard. And so I was back there and do I have a little bit too much headroom? Maybe I'm going to fix that a little bit. And so I was back there just roaming around. They're going to be here soon, just pointing things out. Micah and I were talking and I was pointing out like a couple of bushes that are not really thriving right now and all these things and just talking. And then she's like, it's 1 o'clock. So I had to,
Yeah.
that was basically all she said to me when we were outside. I just like went on and on and on and on and on. I think she was just waiting for me to be done, you know, and then she, you know, I found a fucking crack in the concrete. I'm going to tell you what, Dustin Furman, executive producer. Welcome to the show, my friend. How are you?
Doing pretty dang good. I've decided I'm upgrading because normally I just have 1 cup of coffee, but I decided we're getting the whole pot today. And I can provide you with can you hear that?
ASMR?
Someone is urinating
wow.
in their car now because of that. So that was the goal.
Speaking of urinating, I was going to say when you're going to be drinking all this coffee and then you can pee right in the pot.
Oh, yeah. Well, okay, here's an interesting phenomenon for the coffee, and coffee drinkers know this. Let's say you wake up and you drink 0 water and then drink, 2 healthy sized cups of coffee. When you pee, it will smell like coffee, like very strong. And I've wondered about this because I think I love the smell of coffee when it's brewing in the morning and you smell it's great. And it smells exactly like it when you pee it out later. But I don't, it's pee at that point. So kind of puts you in a conflicting situation at that point. You know what I'm saying?
I guess. You know, I guess I know what you're saying.
I'm asking you to think about it. This is a deep thing here. I mean,
I know it is.
You got to deal with the fact that you're peeing and it smells like coffee. And I just don't know who designed us this way.
That's like when you go to the gas station and you're like, it smells kind of nice here. Because gas sort of smells nice.
Oh, I love the way gas smells.
Like,
dude.
not like, I wouldn't go to sniff gas on purpose, but I understand.
Sure.
I think, you know what I mean? It's like, it's kind of like, I felt the same way about painting. Like when I was like a kid, like I never huffed paint or anything. It always actually scared the shit out of me. the idea that was even something that people did to like fuck their brains up. But whenever my parents were painting the house, I don't know, the smell of it was like, maybe it was just associated with like positive memory. Maybe that's what it is. It's like, oh, it's a nice, like kind of like family thing. We're painting the house and the smell is like associated with that. But I like the smell of paint too.
Me too. Paint, spray paint. I've said before, magic markers, Kingford, like the fat Kingford markers. I would huff that till it smells too good. It's too good. It's like sugar or something. You know you're not supposed to have too much of it, or in this case, any of it, because you're just huffing chemicals. I was always afraid of huffing too. I never did it.
Yeah,
it's the same thing with like white powder. I was just never into any of the artificial weird chemical drugs.
No.
Each their own, but the dudes I knew that did that kind of stuff, they were gone. I mean, I don't know that you're coming back from that. But gasoline, wonderful smell. Yeah, being in an auto shop, great smell. Love that.
Yeah.
All the smells, the chemicals, the kind of unnatural smells are really nice. But you know what you're describing, Dustin, is funny. It's the asparagus pea smell. I mean, that's the famous thing. And I just experienced that the other day where we had asparagus with our dinner, and then I was like peeing, and I'm like, God, like why why are you giving me away like this? I don't understand. So it's what you're saying, but we have to roll with the punches.
Yeah.
For the things we love.
I'm glad we're opening up with pee sniffing, paint sniffing, marker sniffing.
Yeah.
And even the occasional auto shop sniffing.
Yeah, this podcast has metamorphosed.
Wow.
By the way, which is the real... the correct term is metamorphosed, which is shit, I think.
No, it's not. Let's just say that's not true.
Yeah,
we can make our own truth.
And by the way, guys, have you seen... I'm sending you a link here. Have you seen this one?
What is this?
I just want to ask you if you've seen this.
Oh, yeah, Shrek's...
Have you guys seen any of this?
The Last of Us mods are amazing. So he just sent the video of Shrek as Joel.
His face moves.
Yeah, it's like it's weird. It's like Joel's body is still there, but it's just like this no clip Shrek superimposed onto him.
Dude, what's the best shot is when he's leaving and you see it, and he just doesn't stop staring at you as he goes through the door. Watch it.
Oh, yeah. That's pretty good.
Oh, Jesus Christ. What a mess.
I was showing that to Micah before, and I just saw it. It was one of my tabs. I just had to ask you guys. I forgot to close it. All right, my friends. Welcome to Sacred Symbols, PlayStation podcast. This is our 250th episode, auspicious or inauspicious occasion, depending on how you look at it. I don't really think that 250 deserves a celebration. I like to keep the celebrations to the hundreds. I think that because this would be the last 50 that would make sense, right? Because 350, who gives a shit? 450, too soon.
Yeah.
And then you're getting into like 650. I mean, these are just random numbers. So I say we just nip that in the bud right now. We're not going to be doing any of that. But 400, that will be whenever that is. Someone gave us the date for the 1000th episode, which is sometime in 2037.
Which is really probably dead by then. So
I think we might all be dead by then.
Yeah, can't probably do that.
We'll find out. I'll do the podcast into like a tin can with like strings attached to it. In our when the Chinese set off their EMPs as a prelude to the invasion of Taiwan. Welcome one and welcome all to the biggest PlayStation podcast in the world. This is Sacred Symbols. We go up live each and every week, and you can get it 3 days early and ad free over on Patreon. Patreon.com/LastStandMedia. Early ad free access to the podcast, the ability to submit your questions, comments, concerns, and all of your inquiries to the show. Discord access, more than 5,000 fellow fans, and more on Patreon, including Sacred Symbols Plus twice a week. That's the major perk over there. 2 extra episodes of this show every week, deep diving into specific topics, reviews, interviews. Not for nothing. And I got here pretty late, as I was saying, because of the pool thing, so I wasn't able to talk to anyone. But Dustin knows a little bit. We got something big in the works right now.
Oh, boy.
Sacred Symbols Plus.
You've kept me in suspense.
Yeah.
Because of this business.
So we're going to see what happens. It'll be something that piques Chris's interest as well, but we will not talk about it on the show for right now. But Sacred Symbols Plus episodes recently, we did a call-in show. I talked to 8 callers, 8 of you out there, and fielded your questions. Had no idea what you were going to bring up. A lot of interesting stuff. We had Rick Hogue back on the show for the first time this year since his stroke, and we talked about the Activision Blizzard deal as well as the Chris Avellone situation, the successful libel suit that he filed, winning 7 figures. We did a Resident Evil 4 remake review discussion and spoiler cast that was almost 2.5 hours long, I think. Micah did a mailbag. Everyone got to know her, and people really liked that show. I thought that was really fun. You did a PSVR 2 episode with PSVR Without Parole. And Sacred Sales Saga will come back. They just released the new data, so we got to do that in the next week or so, and so on and so forth. Merch, laststandmedia.store. And if you are on podcast services, leave us a nice review. If you're on YouTube, thumb us up, leave a comment. Touch yourself if you want. I don't care.
Yeah, whatever.
Badly Brave wrote in and said, "Hey, CDC. I wanted to write in to wish Chris the best of luck in Creator Clash this weekend. I've been a fan of Chris for damn near a decade now, following his endeavors from his music to his videos to Snark Tank and, of course, Sacred Symbols. It's inspirational to see his willingness to constantly branch out and pursue goals far outside of his comfort zone, always nailing them. I can't even begin to count the times his content has accompanied me through good times and bad times alike, as I'm beyond sure is the case with many other people. I could go on, but in an effort to make this as concise as possible, I'll leave it at this. Kick some ass this Saturday. I'll be lending you my energy from afar." Chris, how you feeling? You're by the time this goes live, you'll be a day out. And then by the time this goes on free feeds, it'll already have happened.
Yeah.
So how you're across the Rubicon and you're engaged. How you feeling, my friend?
We're crossing into it. I feel pretty good. I'm nervous, obviously, because I feel you'd have to be insane not to be nervous about something like this. It's going to be like a 20,000 seat arena. There's going to be millions of people watching me do something that I have no history of doing. So I'm a little stressed out. I think a little bit of it is honestly travel. I just hate travel. I hate going to airports. I hate wondering if my bags are going to get there. I just hate like that feeling of like being on the plane and wondering like, did I forget something? And then you unpack and then you're like, oh, you did forget something. And it's like really minute, but it's like kind of specific. And it's like, God damn it. So I don't know, like there are like little things that I'm nervous about, but I'm excited to just get into the ring because I just want this to happen already. Like it's like the suspense of it. I've been training for 7.5, 8 months. So I'm just like eager to just do it.
You'll get. Yes, I can totally understand that. That's a long time. And
it's a long time. I'm also like, I can't lie. I'm excited to have my life back because I've been. It's been, man. This has cut into so much of my time. It's insane. Like I haven't uploaded really at all. It's been very consuming. Even just like the diet part, just like taking the time to cook and eat as much as I've had to have been eating. It's crazy. I can't wait to become a twig again, and and make dumb videos.
Yeah, well, soon enough, my friend, and yeah, we're all wishing you the very best. It's exciting. Creator Clash. Who are you fighting? They announced the replacement, right?
Yeah. William Haynes. He's a guy from SourceFed and some other things.
Cool.
But yeah,
I saw he had some various advantages statistically, but I think his disadvantage is maybe not having been training or preparing. I don't know.
Yeah,
he
hasn't like he just started training like a couple weeks. I mean, we'll see. I'm pretty confident at this point.
Okay.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. Very good. Very, very good. I still think it's awesome. People are betting real money on betting wires.
Put your money down, Colin. You say you love betting.
I do love betting.
Put some money down on your boy Chris.
Maybe I will.
Is
that a conflict of interest? I don't think so. I don't care about that. What kind of conflict of interest would that be?
Yeah, right.
It's my friend and my money. Yeah, I'll look into that. I wonder where they're taking bets. I do like to bet. You're right. Badly Brave, thank you. And thank you so much for everyone that's written in with kind words for Chris as he prepares for his Creator Clash and gets beyond it. William Jackson wrote in, said, "Hey, Sacred Dudes, congratulations on living to see your 250th episode of Sacred Symbols. For some perspective, this would put you in the top 50 of longest running television series by numbers of episodes. However, with the majority of episodes hovering around 2 to 4 hours in length, you could have easily watched every current episode of The Simpsons twice before you even come close to the total length of Sacred Symbols. That's not even mentioning Sacred Symbols Plus. The last 5 years have been something special, and I just wanted to say thank you all for the hard work and dedication that goes into making this easily one of the best podcasts on the face of the planet." Thank you, William Jackson, for writing in. 250. Reflections? I mean, are there any reflections on 250?
The only thing for me is just that it was at 150 that you officially made me co-host of the show. Now, I had been on a few episodes before that, so it's kind of special, a little bit special for me with 100, more than 100, but we'll say 100 episodes in, and it's been very fun. I appreciate it.
Yeah, we haven't missed a week, which is so fun. Like, there's been no gaps. That is 250 consecutive weeks of content. Yeah. No gaps whatsoever, which I'm really proud of, because I think that kind of reliability is mega important and is at the center of everything we do, of course, with the quality and the humor and all of that as well. But Chris, you have any reflections? We began the show in July of 2018. So it's a long time ago.
It feels like an eternity ago. Especially with how 2020 and 2020 through 2022 has felt just like that alone by itself feels like 5 years. So like we've been doing the show for about a decade now. As far as I mean,
right. It's like dog years or something. Yeah, totally.
Exactly. But so wait, Dustin, you were on normal episodes or plus episodes before 150?
I was on starting to be pretty regularly about 150 because it was around the launch of PS5 when Colin started to subtly slip me in, if you know what I'm saying. The reason I asked is because it reminded me a little bit of it's like, how the Simpsons started at season 1, but like there's that Tracy Ullman kind of period.
Yeah,
before
exactly.
That's what it's like. It's like you got your start on 150, but you had your like Tracy Ullman period. You were animated all crooked.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. It was all a little fucked up.
Those old Tracy Ullman designs are disgusting, man.
Yeah, they are. It's awesome. Tracy Ullman show, like that early Fox stuff is really seminal. I mean, there were so many interesting things going on Fox in the beginning, and Living Color, of course, is one of my favorites from that day. Era introduced us to Jim Carrey and all those people, all those great comedians. He was great. I don't really know if he's great anymore. I don't know that I've seen Jim Carrey in anything in 20 years, to be honest.
He was kind of getting a little nuts.
He's in Sonic.
Oh, Sonic, yeah. I haven't seen Sonic, yeah.
He was in Sonic, but then he also had those like interviews where he was talking about how like none of this matters. Do you ever see that video of her?
Yeah,
talking to the lady on the red carpet or whatever. I can't remember. She's telling her it's like, none of this matters. It's all a fucking. It's so weird seeing Jim Carrey.
It's just funny. I think some people, you got like a little bit of fuck you money, and not a little bit, but a lot of fuck you money, and you just kind of just do your thing. Say what you want. Reveal the truth to the wider world.
Exactly.
Yeah, he's an interesting cat. But yeah, that early Fox stuff was cool, and yeah, maybe we can compare it to that early Tracy Ullman period. Tracy Ullman, who was the one that did? Was she the one that did Strangers with Candy as well? Who did Strangers with Candy?
I know very little about Tracy Ullman other than her vague connections to Monty Python and the Simpsons.
Yeah, who is Strangers with Candy? Oh no, that's Amy Sedaris. Okay,
yeah,
I was thinking of something. Yeah, Strangers, dude. If you don't know Strangers with Candy, if people out there don't know Strangers with Candy, seriously, it's an old Comedy Central show that was on for just like 1 year, I think, and it's fucking hysterical. It's about like an old woman who goes back to high school, and it's just absolutely bonkers. The comedy is so funny. It is so good. I really highly recommend it.
Did you guys ever see that show Aliens in America?
No, what was that?
I saw a video about this recently. It's like it's a show where it was like one season or something, like a few episodes.
2007.
Yeah, and it was like it was a story about like this family wanted to get a foreign exchange student for their son because their son was a loser, and they thought having like a foreign exchange student from like London would be cool. But they get one from Pakistan, and that's the whole that's the whole conflict.
Oh no!
And it's like even by 2008 standards, it's like wildly like whoa, like really like one of the most insensitive things I've ever seen. It lasted for like one season. It's so fun. I just learned about it the other day. I was like, I can't believe this is real.
Yeah, it says it was on CBS. I've never heard of this.
Yeah, so
even the key art or like the promo art's offensive.
It's crazy. Anyway.
All right. What else do we have here? Oh, Anthony wrote in, said, "Hey boys, long time, first time. I don't have a question for you all, just a shout out and a few words of gratitude. I had the pleasure of visiting Deli on the Circle this past weekend and was blown away by the kindness and hospitality shown to me by their staff. I drove just over 350 miles round trip from Michigan to try the sacred sandwich and was not disappointed. Colin, I have to say that I initially doubted your go-to home concoction, not an Onion fan, but now I have tried it. I have to bend the knee. After one of the staff explained to me how many listeners have also made the pilgrimage since the sandwich's inception, she insisted that she take my picture in front of the place to add it to our collection. She even gave me a short history lesson on the immediate area and a free beverage on the way out. Just lovely people all around and one of the best impromptu road trips I've ever taken. It was an honor and it made me feel like closer to the community. You guys are the best. I was thankfully able to fill my trip with enough built up LSM backlog to last me there and back again. Much obliged. Be well and stay safe."
Wow.
I'm telling you, we're building a Hitler's bunker style pilgrimage thing going on here. But I'm sure they would prefer that I would use any other reference.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
What do you think about this? Should we add to the menu, or do we want to just have one set? Like, do we want to just have one thing, like a monotheistic sort of? You come for this?
I think having one thing on there is best. Because it doesn't overshadow everything else. It also isn't like an awkward amount. Like the second you have two things, it's like, well, why aren't there three at that point? Like, why is it only those two? Because then everything else is its own individual item. You know what I mean? But then there's these just two sacred symbol sandwiches. It's a little weird.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out, because we figured this out. It's really not that far from me. I'm looking up on Google Maps right now. It's a 2-hour, 21-minute drive.
You got to go through the final cloud, but you'll get there.
Yeah, that's fine. It's already in the stream, so I'm good with that. But maybe Ben and I will have to make this pilgrimage. We can do a meetup at the deli. Why not? Something like that. I want to cut a ribbon though when I'm there. It doesn't have to say that I own the business or anything. I've always wanted to do that, and this is the absolute closest thing I could think of that would allow me to do something.
It's surprising to me. I looked at their they have like an Instagram, I think it was, that I looked at. Maybe it was Facebook page, I don't remember. But they had pictures of their like their menu board, which is cool. But I noticed they have Boar's Head and then they have like another brand. And they offer you one or the other, which is not uncommon, but I've always been curious about that. Like, who wants the other brand? Like, who the hell is going into a deli and seeing Boar's Head, which is like the staple pinnacle of American delis, and then being like, no, I want that fucking other shit. That's my question.
Yeah, it is weird.
What if it's local?
I don't care about that.
Probably like a lower calorie thing, maybe, or something like that. Like maybe it's like I don't know.
I'll tell you what I think it is. I don't remember precisely because the prices were there. I don't remember what it was, but I bet you it's cheaper because you pay a premium for Boar's Head. But in my opinion, that's a premium worth paying.
There are certain premiums that I don't care that they're premiums. I will pay them. Like one of them is like air conditioning. Like I understand that air conditioning is like expensive, and I understand that like being comfortable in your own apartment is like expensive. But like I don't care. Like if I'm not spending money on this, what the fuck am I buying then?
No, totally. I totally
Why would
agree.
I spend money on anything else other than this?
We're in central air fucking weather now here in the South, and certainly in LA.
Yeah, it's getting hot now.
And yeah, it literally, when my pool is on and the AC is on, it quadruples my power bill.
Yeah.
And that's just the cost of doing business. But hey, solar panels on the house, haven't paid $1 for electricity all year, storing credits away for those times. It's eventually going to eat into the credits we're going to have to pay, but it's always going to be cheaper, substantially cheaper. And I just bought, guys, this is weird. I didn't even know this was an opportunity for me, but I bought into, there's this whole I earn carbon credits by having solar panels, you know, like the whole carbon exchange sort of thing, like carbon neutrality and all that. So I can sell my credits on an exchange, and I just signed up yesterday to do it. So I earn a carbon credit of some sort with every megawatt hour that I create of power. And I was like, this is awesome.
This is like Bitcoin. Like what's going on here? You're talking about exchanges and.
Yeah, it's like, the whole idea, I think it was somewhat abandoned, but I guess it's still happening in some way where, carbon credits there would be a companies would have a certain allotment of carbon that they can create. And they could lower their carbon and sell their extra space to other companies to use to make up for their overuse of carbon. So it was some sort of self-fulfilling tax. And so I don't need the carbon credits at all. I can sell mine to some other entity that will use my carbon credit to buy into their tax bill. That's basically what happens.
Sounds like some government bullshit to me.
Oh,
but if you're making money or whatever, then that's great.
Yeah, it's not much, but it's I just thought that was funny. But the AC, man, is just, we have it on right now, and I feel the electricity just getting sucked through the wires, and it needs so much of it. But you're right, Chris. The comfort is, I knew people in LA that didn't have AC, and I literally was like, I'm not trying to be a dickhead at all, but I don't even know how you live here like that.
No, yeah.
How can you live here without an air conditioner? I don't know. I know people did and do, but I don't think that's even a privileged thing to say. The United States is like the most air conditioned. People from around the world comment on that. That's like one of the biggest comments when they come to the United States is like, there is so much air conditioning in this country that it's actually insane.
Yeah, Europe
like everywhere you go.
Europe has like barely any, I think. Like
exactly.
I think in London they didn't have it, but that's why they were dying when it got like super hot for like
exactly.
1 week. And
we're making the problem worse by using our air conditioner to stay comfortable while making the weather worse.
Oh, that's awesome.
Owned.
Yeah, got him. But
got him.
Yeah, I don't know, man. My first apartment didn't have an air conditioner, or it
did.
But it was
in LA.
Yeah, it was in Glendale, and it had one air conditioner, but it was like one of the window units, and it was in the kitchen. So like, my room just never got any of that. Like it was like a genuine like 5 degree, like 6 degree difference when you would step out of my room into like the main part of the apartment. I used to sleep with like one of those oscillating like vertical fans under my blanket with me because it was that bad.
Yeah, I couldn't even. I couldn't do it. My place in LA had central air. I like could not fathom that. In San Francisco, no one has AC. And you don't need it. And so the 1 or 2 days a year where it gets horrible, you wish you had it. But generally speaking, it's just so San Francisco had the perfect ambient weather. It's too bad that people literally shit all over the city, so you can't You can't enjoy it anymore.
No.
Dude, you know the poop map? You ever see the poop map?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I've never seen
It's
that.
so funny how crazy it is now where it's just like black. You can't even really see any of the individual markers on it anymore. People should go look up the San Francisco poop map. It's quite the view if you want to check it out. That city seems to be... Dude, I heard that San Francisco has in excess of 50% open commercial space with and office real estate with more percentage increasing all the time. It's like a ghost town. Very weird and scary.
It's fucking expensive as fuck.
Yeah, and also I personally think that the pandemic opened a lot of people's eyes to how much time they waste commuting, to how much time they're away from family and the things they love and all of that for no reason, how much middle management controls their lives with fucking menial meetings and micromanagement, and that all of that can be cut out. And I've said it before, and I know Chris and I disagreed on this, but Twitter is a great example of a company that just literally fired 80% of its staff, but the core functionality of the thing works still. And to me, it's like I just think a lot of people don't do anything in those spaces, and I think this is great for the worker that should fight to work on their terms.
Did you see that thing recently? How like you know how Twitter has like the close friends circle?
Yeah,
people from outside of the circle are just able to see that now because it doesn't work.
Interesting.
It's Twitter works fine theoretically. Like Twitter works at the capacity that it worked at in 2009, which is you can tweet and you can see tweets. But like any like complicated anything that's happened since then is like completely like my notifications are still fucked. My DMs are still like weird. Like the close circle thing doesn't work. It's like I don't know what's going on, to be honest, but it's fascinating.
I'm eager to lose my.
I don't think they needed like 15,000 people to run it or anything, but like I think there was maybe a slight overcorrection going on.
I don't know if you saw the story I put in our Discord, like the staff Discord a few days ago. It was just from the Wall Street Journal, and it was about it was about how companies hired thousands and sometimes tens of thousands of employees during boom times to basically just stow them away. Like, didn't even give them assignments. At some of these companies, like they had nothing to do, literally nothing. And that's where those comical videos of it being like a day in the life of a Facebook employee and like writing fucking, believe in your journal and then going and eating kale salad and having
kale is so gross.
Prosecco. What'd you say?
Kale is disgusting. Like straight up, one of the worst things I feel like I've ever tasted in my life.
Really?
Yeah,
I love kale.
Oh man, Holly,
I love it. I think it's fine.
Prosecco is a little different, but yeah. Kale?
No, I can't. I'm not down with kale.
Oh, I love it. I love kale. I love leafy greens. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't mind.
Weird, but true. I don't often need to eat them, but like we had pasta yesterday, and I didn't make it, but Micah made broccoli rabe, which is like one of my favorites. Love it. Also known as rapini. It's good shit. What were we talking about?
I don't know.
Someone remind me.
We were talking about a sandwich.
Oh, sandwich, right? A sandwich. Yeah. So go check out. Where is it? Yeah, Deli on the Circle. I think it's in Litchfield, Ohio. And I'm gonna need a cut of this. Eventually, we're gonna need a cut.
Eventually.
We'll have to talk about that. You had something to say, Chris?
No, that was a Snark Tank level derailment.
Oh yeah, good. Well, the genetics are shared, so we're cousins. I Don't Like Kids wrote in and said, "Hello, gamers. Seeing the news about Dalai Lama being a big fan of children got me thinking. What type of gamers do you think major historical figures such as Hitler, Mussolini, Stalin, and Martin Luther King Jr. would be? Would they be into multiplayers like Chris, single player like Colin, or Kingdom Hearts like Dustin? Cheers from Bootleg Hollywood, aka Vancouver." That is a wonderful reference. Although I would consider Vancouver more of like a bootleg Seattle.
Yeah, Toronto, I feel like is more of a
right.
Like I feel like more things are filmed in Toronto than. But can I just say that I love that this guy sees the Dalai Lama asking a kid to suck his tongue, and then he sees that and he goes, "I wonder what video games Hitler would have liked."
And then you know where my mind goes immediately, Chris, is to the famous meme of Hitler holding an Xbox 360 controller. You know what I'm talking about? The amazing, like, looks like it's a real historical picture.
Yeah.
You got to put that in here, Dustin, if you can.
I love
for the audience. People will know what we're talking about. It's such a wonderful. It's like the meme we brought up in the past of the kid playing with the finger skateboard thing with Hitler.
Yeah.
And it looks super real. So, some people are doing awesome art. Why does Hitler keep coming up on the show? I don't know if I want the answer to that or what I think people are going to say if I say that out there, but they're going to be like, your show is SS.
Yeah.
No,
That's true. Yeah.
no, we don't mean it like that. I don't know what kind of gamer Hitler would be. I do know what kind of gamer, where was it? Oh, here it is. I do know what kind of gamer Stalin would be. He would like the, what was that game made by the game everyone loved by that Leninist studio that fell apart?
Disco Elysium.
Disco
No.
Elysium.
Did they fall apart?
Well, yeah, there was like all sorts of lawsuits, and I did an episode on it. They still exist, but it's like a purported shadow form of it.
I think I feel like Martin Luther King would have been big into like stuff like FTL for some reason, like or like Papers, Please, like things that aren't necessarily like super, like things that super aren't necessarily like action oriented. Hitler's absolutely like a Valorant player, like 1,000,000%. Like you seen that video of him?
Very toxic.
Yeah, he's toxic. He's like shouting slurs. Have you seen that video of him? Video of him at the Olympics going like this? Like
he's just like at the Berlin Olympics.
Yeah.
No,
like
I don't think I've seen that.
I can't believe I haven't seen that video until like recently. But like it's a video of him like just
he's like tweaking out.
He's like on meth or something.
There was like a theory that he had Parkinson's or something, right? And
that's more than Parkinson's, man. That's like,
well, yeah, it's just in Man in the High Castle where the Nazis win, like he is shown as being all fucked up, and like with that, I think also in Wolfenstein,
yeah,
they might do the same thing
too.
Like, yeah, he's like all. I think I don't even want to spoil it, but I think that's a major plot point. Actually, is why they send him somewhere.
And yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, so I think there were theories because in that movie Downfall that everyone mimics, when people were around the German or the maps and they would do the memes, like the huge videos of like them pointing around the map. You guys know what I'm talking about?
I have no clue what you're saying.
Oh. Really? Like it would be like all in German. And they would be around a map pointing, and be all the officers, and they were saying something, but people would just translate it to whatever they wanted it to be.
The one with like Hitler losing his shit in that.
Right, exactly.
Okay, yeah.
Hitler in that is supposed to be represented in a very realistic way. There's like a shot of him like basically shaking like crazy, grabbing his glasses off his hands and stuff, or off his head and all of this.
Yeah,
so I think that all comes from his representation in certain public scenes like that. At the Olympics, that was 1936, I think.
Yeah, I don't know. It just looked like he was tweaking. So to me, I feel like he would absolutely. He's an action guy. He's a Twitch shooter person.
Right.
Like he's absolutely like in the Counter-Strike lobbies. Yeah, Dust 514. He's playing on Dust.
Dust 514.
I don't know, man. That Dalai Lama shit was funny as hell, though.
Dude, I was just like,
why?
We gotta. Maybe Dalai Lama to the wood chipper. I'm not entirely sure.
Maybe
unclear.
I love whenever the Dalai Lama comes up in the news because I get to post that clip of Norm Macdonald going like doing one of his jokes. He goes, the Dalai Lama said killing on the basis of religion is unthinkable. Gee, thanks, Dalai Lama. I bet somebody will fucking listen to you. No one listens to the Dalai Lama.
I know. I miss him. Like he would be going off right now.
I think about Carlin a lot. Like I wish Carlin was still around.
Definitely.
Although I bet
there was some weird AI Carlin thing I saw recently that was
that's uncomfortable.
Yeah, like I'm friendly with Kelly Carlin, his daughter, and
Are you
I
really?
saw that she was on the show once back in LA. And I knew her through Dave Rubin actually, and
that's crazy.
Yeah, so she came over and actually did an episode with me, which was cool. But I follow her on Twitter, and she just she was tweeting like, I think she's like the executor of like the whole estate or whatever. But
yeah, people
are still like really fucking around in illegal ways with Carlin, and I think are like making pretty good like AI versions of him now and stuff, and brings up all these interesting creative problems. We're way off the deep end. This is episode 250, though.
Yeah.
This is episode 250.
Episode.
What kind of gamer would Martin Luther King Jr. be? I don't know. He had a fire in the belly, right? But he was inherently nonviolent, and he was conciliatory. So I don't know.
RTS maybe?
Yeah, no, maybe an RTS. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Well, I don't know where you came up with this question. As far as the Dalai Lama is concerned, I'm.
What was up with that,
dude? I mean, I don't know what else to say. I mean, that's the kind of dude you just you gotta. If you do that in front of just everyone, right in front of, and just do it, and you just think it's normal, I can't even imagine what you do behind closed doors. That's what I'm going to say about that. Okay, fucking freak.
I read that headline to it was when my dad was here for Easter, to my dad and Holly. I was like, you're never going to believe this headline that the Dalai Lama asked you to suck his tongue. Oh no,
that's man, whatever.
I mean, Dalai Lama's gonna have to suck a shotgun barrel if he keeps doing that to kids. Yeah, it's a little weird. I don't like that.
It's a lot of weird.
Yeah, it's a lot of weird. That's true. Clark Petrie wrote in and said, "Gents, not directly related to PlayStation, but have any of you seen the other video game movie that has recently been released? Yes, I'm talking about the phenomenal Tetris on Apple TV Plus. It has Cold War intrigue and the anxiety of Soviet loyalists cognizant of the impending collapse of the Union, all swirling around one of the most iconic games ever. As someone who loves dramatized business intrigue films, Tetris was an A+ movie for me. If this question is a complete miss, perhaps Dustin can share his thoughts on the Mario Brothers movie. You are all the best." Speak on this however you want. I know you both saw Mario, right? I didn't see Mario. I haven't seen the Tetris movie. I have heard it is good. I don't have Apple right now. So when I get it back at some point, I got to catch up on a few shows over there. I'll check that out for sure.
Yeah.
I do want to watch this really bad. I heard it was great. Well, maybe not great, but at least interesting. I thought the trailer looked cool and fun. But yes, Chris, I saw that you saw the Mario movie as well. And I got to say, I was shocked. I thought I was going to like it a good deal, but I thought it was just purely through and through an absolutely fun, cute movie that understood what it needed to be. Not perfect in certain aspects. There's a couple. I'm just going to say it because I don't know. If you really want to skip it as a spoiler, there's some modern music, or we'll say 80s music, like needle drop moments. I can do without those. It's Nintendo. You've got amazing music. In fact, the score of this movie is amazing. But we didn't need Mario and Take On Me combined. That was I didn't need that. But it wasn't that bad.
That I specifically felt was a little weird. Like I was all right with pretty much all the other ones. I was like, all right, yeah, that's fair. That's a good. There are certain songs in there. There are certain songs that they use that I think are a little bit too associated with other popular films, and you'll see what I'm talking about if you see it. But that Take On Me felt like really out of place. I was like, why is this here? But yeah, it was super fun, man. Like I had a great time in that theater. I was like, I laughed a couple times, which is like kind of surprising. The thing that worried me most about it was like, oh, it's Illumination, so it's these Minions people. And even in the opening credits, like when they show Illumination's logo, there's a godforsaken Minion just sitting there. It's doing its dumb Minion thing. There's no soul behind that. I'm not even convinced they have voice actors do this anymore. I'm pretty sure they have like a Minion AI or something that just does all these stupid voices. But like once it got past that, though, it was super fun. The score was awesome. Like the way they weaved in all the different like Mario tunes and the way the DK rap being in there was dope. That's not really a spoiler, but it's good, man. It's a fun movie. I don't know how much it works if you don't know anything about Mario. Like if you're like a 90-year-old man, I don't think you're gonna have a lot of fun with it. Who's never heard of Mario in his life, but I thought it was super entertaining. I like that star, and it's not a spoiler because it's in the trailer, but there's this really nihilistic star that is that's voiced by a baby basically, and he's like, I can't wait to die, and I'm just like, I can't believe this is in this movie. It's like really jarring, but it was great. I really want to see that Tetris movie too, because Tetris, I mean, I've said this on the show before, but Tetris is like, I think the best video game ever. Like I don't think there's a single. I think you can mathematically prove that, actually.
Tetris is wonderful. And that they figured out to make a compelling film about a really compelling story about how that game came to be and actually broke out of the Soviet Union is, of course, awesome. That story's kind of told in the seminal book about Nintendo from it's like a 30-year-old book now, which is crazy. Game Over. And which is just a wonderful book about the NES days and the early SNES days. By the way, my knee is making an appearance for the first time because I'm wearing shorts. So there it is. There's my knee for everyone to see. Okay. Speaking of Nintendo, Jay Chimichanga wrote in and said, "Hey, CDC. I very recently joined the Last Stand family because of my cousin Michael not shutting up about how great this podcast is. He has an odd taste in things, so I thought this would be a miss, but to my surprise, he was right. You guys put out some great content, and I even found myself listening to Defining Duke and Xbox podcast, and I don't own an Xbox. This brings me to my question. Has it been considered to make a dedicated podcast for Nintendo to include all stinky Switch-related news? Thank you for all of your time, and keep up the amazing work." So, and we have even more to say about Nintendo after this, but I wanted to touch on this really quick. People have been writing in about this with more frequency, and I'll be totally honest and say that it's like something we discuss. But I don't know the level of belief in our ability to make a show that would be repeatable enough, because Nintendo doesn't do very much. But now with all of these different things coming up, and there's like all these different angles, maybe it is time, to do a Nintendo show. I just don't know if there's interest. I also don't know where it fits. We do so much content. We do 6 shows a week. I would think that if we did a Nintendo show, something would have to give at that point, because I don't think doing a 7th show is necessarily wise, but maybe it is. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that, Dustin?
Yeah, for me, it's always a matter of like, we are pretty maxed out on our schedule and releasing stuff. And yeah, but I think you're right in that there is an interesting opportunity to do something like that. And it's, like you said, something that we've had many conversations about, actually. So I don't know, just figuring out the right time and how to implement that, if that's something we want to do. But it's nice to hear from the audience that that's something you want. You can always feel free to let us know that kind of feedback, because we take it into consideration.
Certainly. I think there is something to the MO of less is more, and trying to make things quality, consistent, and reliable, but not put too much on your plate. And I noticed that a lot of our competitors are constantly swirling things in and out. You don't really know where to find things. This thing gets covered, this thing doesn't get covered. People release schedules like the week or the week of sometimes, or 2 weeks out. I like the fact that you just know exactly what you're getting, regardless of what happens. And if there's a big event, we usually break the line and we'll publish something early. And that's about the most we can do. But I think that level of consistency and that machine gun kind of cadence is part of what makes us special. And I think if we did a Nintendo show, I don't know, something would have to go, I think. And I'm not saying a show would have to go, just a day of the week would need to become open somehow.
Vote for the show you like the least. We can do the Survivor style.
It's like, it could be an episode of Sacred Symbols Plus, which I don't think would be very popular with the audience. So I don't really know. But yeah, it's something to consider. And speaking of that as well, I wanted to bring this up because I wanted to talk a little bit about Nintendo, if I might, with you guys today. But I saw this, and it's not necessarily surprising, but it kind of is. Nintendo of America tweeted out that they've announced a 2023 Nintendo Live, an in-person event for fans of all ages that will take place in Seattle this September. Experience Nintendo Switch gameplay, live stage performances, tournaments, photo ops, and more. As I wrote in our notes here for the show, Nintendo announces their own PSX, and this is something that we've discussed many times. I went to the first 3 PSXs, and they were PlayStation experiences for people that didn't know, and they were fun, although maybe a little underwhelming, especially the first year, although it was fun to be there because it was so grassroots and raw at that time. And they stopped doing it, and I think that COVID has kind of convinced a lot of companies that they don't need to bring this stuff back, or that it's just not quite time yet. It's interesting to see Nintendo breaking out of their mold so much the last few years. And I was talking to Dagan about this on Knockback, is that 5, 6, 7 years of Nintendo, the last 5, 6, 7 years, you've seen just radical shifts on things with them, whether it's going all in on the Switch and abandoning a traditional home console, right? Or allowing the proliferation of their IP on mobile games that became really, really big with things like Pokemon Go, which of course had big partners involved as well, like the Pokemon Company and Niantic. A film, right? Coming back to film for the first time in 3 decades in a major way. And they're doing a theme park, and it's going into what we were talking about earlier. That's how you would have to kind of cover Nintendo, is more like, I think Disney is covered. And I think they're becoming very similar companies, actually, in some ways, for better or for worse. But I think this is a very wise move. This thing is going to be packed with people. I can't even imagine. Chris, what do you think about a Nintendo PSX?
I mean, I think it's cool. I think I wish I wish this wasn't just Nintendo doing this kind of thing, because I feel like these events are really, really cool, and I feel like they're generally good for the console manufacturers in general. I just when was the last PSX you went to? Like, when was the last time they did one?
I think they might have done one in 2017, but I think the last one I went to was 2016.
That sounds right. 2017.
Yeah. I didn't go to the last one. I think there were 4, and I went to the 3 of the 4.
Yeah, I don't know. You have to imagine that they stopped it for a good reason, or at least reasons that make sense on their end that maybe we're not privy to. But at the same time, like, I don't know, you see something like this coming out of Nintendo, which in fairness is a very different company. Obviously, they like, you talked about the theme park, you talked about the movies. Sony doesn't have a theme park, but they are branching out into television and movies, and not too dissimilar a way. I would argue even more so, in fact, because we really only got the Mario movie, and that's it. We'll see like what happens now that it's been a success. I'm sure there's a sequel. I'm sure there's going to be like,
oh my god, isn't it the highest grossing, the highest the NCU, right? I mean,
it's going to happen. I guarantee it.
I did see an image macro of like all the like Zelda and or like a fake roadmap where it was like Zelda and it all culminates in the Smash Brothers movie, and it bothers me because I can see that happening. Like, that makes perfect sense to me that they would do that. It's just like another one of these. That would be, it'd be
unbelievable. Have like an Ice Climbers movie, and
yeah, I don't know.
I want to know an Ice Climbers live action 8-episode Peacock series.
Wow.
Oh man. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's cool though. I like events like these, especially now that E3 is a big old pile of green skeleton bones. I think now is as good a time as any to do something like this.
Xbox did or does something, right? Xbox was it called Xbox O something, or
I don't know. They do sporadic events like that. Like, I remember like for the 360 they had that weird meetup in the desert, which was cool, but like I don't know if they have I don't know if they have events like this.
FanFest was what they did for E3.
Okay. And
which was always
maybe that's what I'm thinking of.
That FanFest was always so funny to me because of the E3 conferences, I got to go to the last few Xbox ones, and they would like not wheel in, but they would send in all the FanFest people and put them at the very front. So if you saw people freaking out at those Xbox ones, they were their hardcore, and that's a good idea for the cameras and stuff to have people shouting Phil and stuff, but it's always funny.
Phil.
Yeah.
I think the only event Xbox really has of a similar nature is probably just like if you on the street just so happen to run into Major Nelson. Like that's their equivalent. It's like, oh hey, look, it's Major Nelson.
Major Nelson, he's still banging around, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Larry Herb, right?
Larry Herb, Xbox Live's Major Nelson.
Yeah, I've met him a couple times. He was very nice.
Yeah, he seems super cool.
Yeah. Yeah, he's been there for like since he's like the OG. He seems to me, I could be off base on this, but and it goes into the many things I think Xbox did first in some ways, but he's like the first community manager.
Yeah, kind of.
Right? Like
he's the first community icon is too much of a strong word, but you know what I mean? Like this kind of like this presence that's associated with the community side, or like almost like the community ambassador.
Right.
Though he doesn't, even though those aren't the right words, but I'm struggling to find an accurate terminology for what he really he's because he's not a mascot, he's a person.
Right. No, totally. And I think Shuhei Yoshida and others of that time, I was gonna say Jack Tretton, maybe him a little bit, and others were kind of chasing that that idea, and they actually captured it both with real people and of course with fake people, but with Kevin Butler, of course. But yeah, it's interesting to see PSX kind of bubbling around with people in our ecosystem now that this Nintendo show has been announced, because people wonder if it should come back. Dustin, I am curious about your further thoughts on this.
I loved PSX. I got to go to all of them but the first one. And of the shows I've been to, which is mainly PAX and E3, PSX of those three was by far my favorite. Just in that it was much more small scale, not quite as busy as those other shows. And I liked the focused approach in that it being around one console. And seeing something like this from Nintendo gives me hope that it would inspire Sony to maybe bring it back again. I kind of wonder what Nintendo's angle is on why they're doing this. It almost doesn't really seem necessary for them to do something like that, because they don't need to like really rile up their hardcore. They're always going to be there for them, and they're always going to go out and buy their stuff, and they're always going to go spread the Nintendo gospel. But PlayStation Experience kind of was that call to arms for PlayStation, that I always said that was the value of it. They may not make any money on the event itself, but they would gather their most loyal fans together and basically, make them disciples to go out and tell everybody about all the cool games and stuff they got to check out at PSX. So maybe this is an alternative to E3, where we start having these individualized 1 or 2 day events that are focused around platforms. This Nintendo one sounds awesome. I'd love to go. I don't think I will, just because it's Seattle, right? I think.
Yeah, it's in Seattle.
So.
Yeah.
Which is in their neck of the woods.
Right. So I don't know. Here's hoping.
Yeah, I think you're right. It goes back to this premise of you don't have to go that hard. Yeah. And I think Nintendo's really in a scene right now where it's like a full court press with a lot of the different stuff. But what's so funny is that they're doing it without hardware.
Yeah, we know it right now.
What'd you say? I'm sorry.
They could. There's the rumor right now is that they're going to reveal new hardware for next year, or maybe even late this year.
Well, right. That's so like right. That's what I'm saying is this is a prelude to the introduction of the inevitability of something new, because they've all but stopped their releases. Right. I mean, everything is after Zelda. Zelda always seems to be the end, or at least it wasn't always, but it has been. Like the N64 kind of capped with Majora's Mask. GameCube kind of capped with Twilight Princess, going into Wii, but then at the end of the Wii, you get Skyward Sword, and that's kind of capped off.
Then Breath of the Wild was the same thing.
And right, Breath of the Wild with Wii U, and then this game with Switch. I think that's very appropriate. I think that's also where the new Mario game is going to come in, is probably as some sort of launch game. I think that'd be very wise for a new Switch. But I'm rooting for Nintendo. Dagan and I, so I'll spoil it here for the Sacred Symbols audience, is that the next episode of Knockback is Super Mario Brothers 3. And this is a game that Dagan and I adore and share deep memories with, which we're so excited to share with the audience, of playing it at the time and my complete obsession with that game. And we were talking about how I still root for Nintendo, even though I think I've graduated from Nintendo in some way. I think everyone should at least begin there and dwell there for a little while to know it and to understand kind of the cadence of things. But I think I'm looking for something else in my games than what they offer. And in fact, that was, if anything, reinforced in the Zelda trailer that came out, I think today, from when we're recording, that a lot of people are gushing over, but I see this and I'm like, I think this looks exactly the same as the last Zelda game. I do, just with some different aesthetic values. And I like looking forward to new and different things, but I appreciate anyone's tastes. I think that's up to you. And Nintendo, and that was the thing Dagan and I were saying, is that like, who does it better as far as just sheer quality, like just reliability and a big hanging onions, like a big balls approach of not dropping the price on their games, saying like, there is a Nintendo quality bar. We don't discount our games in serious ways until later. We don't give you a cheap or easy way in necessarily, but once you're in, you're great. And some of the things they do there are so valuable. Like I think the Nintendo Online thing, it's like $50 a year or something, or I think that's what it is. Maybe it's $70 a year. It's awesome. It's amazing.
It wasn't a good value initially. It is now that they've added so much stuff to it. But dude, the Nintendo 64 Online, I've been thinking about playing Paper Mario again.
Yeah, do it, no balls.
Dude, it's so good. Have you played Paper Mario?
Me?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I've played some of them. I haven't played all of them.
It's good. I hear that Thousand Year Door is the best one. Rumor that it's going to get remastered.
That's what I was going to say. Is I saw that same rumor. I want to say the last Paper Mario game I played was on GameCube.
Then yeah, so that would be Thousand Year Door.
Thousand Year Door. I think and that's the second one or the third one.
Second
one, right? Okay. So no, I might have played one after that. Then I don't know where it would have been though. Maybe Wii. Because yes, I was playing Wii. Okay. Why was I playing Wii? I don't know. Do you guys remember the game Zack and Wiki? I've been thinking about that game recently. Do you know that game? It's a Capcom game.
Never played it, but I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I really, really loved that game early on the Wii. I was just thinking about that. That game's kind of lost to history, but that was a really, really cute, random Japanese Capcom game. All right, guys, just a few other things I wanted to get through real quick. We don't have to speak on them too deeply if we don't want to. I thought this was interesting. Our friends over at Gamatsu wrote that Fantavision 2020X or 22X, I guess is how you say it, which is on PSVR 2 and also available on PlayStation 5 without VR. It's being ported to PC and will come out April 27th. I simply thought that was interesting because that's technically a first-party PlayStation game. Fantavision is a Japan studio game, launch PlayStation 2 game from 2000 for people that are unfamiliar with it. And so that kind of quietly enters the list of weird PlayStation games on PC. I just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah. It says that it's licensed. They licensed it to Cosmo Machia?
Yeah,
who are they?
Machia, I think. It's an external dev, I think. Yeah, and they had done that with the original version. So what they're saying is that Sony is licensed and is not publishing the game.
Okay.
But the game itself is a remake or a kind of a reimagining, I guess, of the original Fantavision. Actually, looking at the screenshot, it doesn't really look very different. I mean, it looks more pretty. But yeah, just wanted to throw that out there. I thought that was interesting. As well, we can talk about this. Push Square pointed this out, and I thought this was true, and it is. So Warner Brothers still hasn't officially delayed Suicide Squad, Kill the Justice League. Even though all of the rumors and Jason Schreier, as they note here, who's typically reliable, says that the game has been delayed and will be pushed maybe even into 2024, but they haven't delayed the game yet, and it's still on course. If you were just unknowing and you went online, you would think that the game was still coming out on May 26th. Chris, what's going on with this?
I don't know. I mean, plans do change, right? Sometimes you can get accurate information for the time, and then immediately after you get that information, things change. Maybe they aren't delaying it. Maybe because we did have a conversation, right, about Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, how like there were multiple ways to look at it from the inside, and how it was theoretically at least a valid perspective to just be like, listen, this is our game. Here it is. Like you might not, maybe it doesn't look cool by the trailers, or maybe you have some preconceived notions about it, but we believe in this and this is what the game is. So get your hands on it and then tell us what you think. Maybe that could be happening. Or there could be some serious managerial miscommunication going on. That's everything is speculative at this point, but it's bizarre to me that we would get a leak like that and still have no idea what's going on when it's just barely a month out. That's a little concerning.
Yeah, it's interesting in the sense that, because I think you're right, it could be one of a number of things, but Occam's razor suggests to me that Jason Schreier is reliable, so his information is true, but they're trying to figure out what the date will be. And they might not want to say like the game's delayed more soon, because that's worse than saying the game is delayed and here's the new date. And maybe they're just pushing. But I like your theory, and I don't think it's totally impossible that they're going to be like, the game's actually going to come out. And that's what we've been trying to figure out. It's ready to go. What can we've said it before. What can you do to that game in a year? You're going to just gut the systems and make it. You can't. You can't do that. I think some people think that that's like what's going to happen, but it's not what's going to happen. That's ripping the guts out of the game will require a completely rebuild of, new build of everything from the ground up. The way they think about things. Maybe not literally. Maybe you wouldn't have to reprogram things or make new graphics, but you'd have to think fundamentally about the way you've designed your game, the whole design, the whole philosophy of it. So I think they might be in between a rock and a hard place, Dustin, where they realize potentially there's not much we're going to be able to do, and maybe you delay it and polish what it is, like Chris is saying, stand by it and then polish what it is to a sheen. So it's like, well, you might not like what we're doing here, but it's very good at what it does nonetheless. And that could be a win.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I think that there's a possibility too, just thinking about this, if they knew for sure that it wasn't going to be delayed, I think they would have commented by now and say, no, rumors are not true. It is coming out on this date. And so it may have been a situation when those rumors came out, they didn't know if they were going to have to delay because they maybe identified some core issues that the team felt were achievable. And again, this isn't a full remake or rethinking of how the game works, but maybe just some things that they identified that from either feedback or just from internally that they wanted to change. And they thought, okay, we have this amount of time. Let's see if we can do this. And then we'll check in this many weeks out. And then at that point, decide if we want to delay or not. I would imagine if that theory is correct, that check-in date is very, very soon, because we are coming down to the wire. They got to start printing discs. They got to get things ready to go and really ramp up the marketing at this point. But right now, I would lean towards the fact that it still is going to get delayed, and we'll find out very soon.
Yeah, I don't know, man. This is such an interesting case study in letting your studios explore, but keeping them within the confines. Like, someone's got to be the parent, right? And say, are you sure that you should be doing that? It's like, it's sending little Billy out in like a tutu to school one day, right? And it's like, that's fine if that's what you want to do, little Billy, but are you sure you understand the ramifications of your decisions, right? That maybe people are going to be upset about your decision to wear a tutu to class or whatever. I think the same thing is going on here. It's like, you can't present this game as a service when you're known for Arkham. That's your right to do that, but people are not going to be necessarily happy about that. I don't know. It's very strange to me. And I'll see what I think is a sunk cost fallacy in some way as well. Like, I don't know that them spending more money and more time on this is wise, unless the game is fundamentally not ready.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I will say this as well, and I know I've been going on and on about this, and this is a tired topic at this point, but it could be really, really good. And it could also do really, really well. We don't really know that. Right. We see things like Gotham Knights doing decently. I just don't know. Like, is it going to be like this massive Arkham Knight style success story? Probably not, but potentially. I think people just assume the worst always about these kinds of things. And I just wanted to say that too, that maybe it turns out that our instincts are wrong. Our instincts are usually right. You can usually call these games, but this has things working for it, including the prestige of a huge studio. And most importantly, an IP that people really love and that will carry it. I'm sure the game's going to sell millions of copies, which for most studios would be a huge success story. All right. Finally, this is brief news, and I wanted to touch base with you on this one, Dustin, which is that Suikoden 1 and 2, HD Remaster, Gate Rune, and Dunin Unification Wars has been given a rating in Taiwan. This indicates that the game could be coming soon. It's been announced. We discussed it last year, and I know did you play both 1 and 2 on PS1 like the originals?
I played all of the first one, and then I started the second one and got sidetracked. So
cool. So you dig it. And obviously, Suikoden, the spirit of Suikoden lives on in the upcoming Ayuden Chronicle. Well, there already is an Ayuden, I think, like prequel out, but the Ayuden Chronicles game, the idea of having this huge cache of recruitable characters and all the rest, and a very, very Japanese role-playing, sprite-like trapping. So it's pretty good. And I know you had a good time with Suikoden. So how are you feeling about this maybe coming soon? Are you going to check them out on the new consoles?
Yeah, at this point, I'm still really early on in Suikoden 2, so I think I'll probably just abandon that to play the new version But I think I said this a few weeks ago. Maybe it was on Sacred Symbols Plus. I don't remember. But don't skip Suikoden 1. A lot of people are going to focus on Suikoden 2 because you don't really need to play the first one, but I really enjoyed the first one, and they connect through your save file in really interesting and unique ways. So this is going to be awesome. We are feasting well when it comes to these old school sprite-based JRPGs right now, especially, Final Fantasy coming out next week. There's just going to be so many great things.
Indeed. I'm super stoked, and I guess we can get right into it, actually, because we're going to talk about the games we're playing. But the game I will be playing beginning this weekend and moving forward, Mega Man Battle Network Legacy Collection Volume 1. Preloaded already on my console. Now, it's cool. So these are being released as a tandem, Battle Network Legacy Collection Volume 1 and Volume 2. And so they're two separate downloads with two separate platinum trophies, which is super awesome. So one focuses on Battle Network 1, 2, and 3, and one focuses on Battle Network 4, 5, and 4. And I don't think there is a 6, but 4 and 5. And I guess the different iterations, maybe there is a 6. I don't know. But I was super excited about that. I loved those games, at least the first few. I didn't play the last few on Game Boy Advance, and I'm super excited to get into those. And of course, the week after that, Final Fantasy Pixel remasters come, and we'll talk about those actually later in the show. But let's talk about what we're playing here. And Dustin, we'll actually kick it over to you first.
Sure. So last week I mentioned that I have begun my Metal Gear Solid series playthrough. It's a perfect time to do it since there's no big releases right now. And I just finished up Metal Gear Solid 1. Last week I was really, really hot on it. And I'm still overall now going through and playing through the whole game again. Obviously, this game is a classic. What it was able to achieve at that time with that technology is still so incredibly impressive. It's funny going back now because I've always remembered playing this game in 2001, being just a wee lad and beating it. But playing it now, I'm thinking, surely I've had to have played on easy, because some of these fights in this game are they're not easy. They're very tough, actually. In particular, some of them, even like the Psycho Mantis fight, which I know the tricks about the different controller port and stuff like that. He can be pretty tough. Some of these different boss fights were giving me some trouble, but eventually made it through. And yeah, I was noticing more as I was playing that some of the janky qualities were definitely starting to get to me a lot more. In particular, there's a part of the game that I'll just loosely say that you have this key card that you need to manipulate through temperature. And anyone who's played this game knows it's a really, really boring part of the game that is totally just filler, where you have to run around to different parts of this base and go back and forth. It sucks. But overall, it was a joy to go through and play again. And the other thing I will say, just that surprised me, is some of the super cheesy quality of some of these cutscenes where you have Otacon asking Snake if he believes that love can bloom on the battlefield and stuff like that. It's pretty awesome. I loved it. It was perfect, and it makes sense for like the era and stuff like that. But immediately I went in and jumped into Metal Gear Solid 2 because growing up, Metal Gear Solid 2 was my favorite of the series. I played some of 3, but I never could get into it at the time. So what's annoying is that this game, it's a bit all over the place on how you or where you want to play it in order to get the best experience. And right now what's really annoying is that the best way to play is through Xbox backwards compatibility of the HD collection. But if you don't already own it, or if you don't have the disc, you can't play it. It's not available on storefronts at all right now because apparently Konami didn't renew some license of historical footage. And this was months ago that they said, don't worry, we're gonna get these back up.
Yeah, we reported about it.
Nothing's happened. Luckily, I bought it right before they took it down. So I've been playing that version. It's really, really good. I'm playing it on Series X. Looks really crispy. And man, this game is so good right from the start. The tanker mission, when Snake lands on the tanker and he's got the the sneaking suit or the whatever the stealth suit, and it does all the electricity. And man, I remember playing that so many times, particularly because it was part of the demo that you would get with Zone of the Enders. Mm-hmm. And I think me and my uncle, who I've talked about, would play games all the time. I think we bought that game, Zone of the Enders, used just to get that demo or something. Maybe we rented it, but it was all about...
I bought Zone of the Enders new just to get that demo, and I was glad I did, because Zone of the Enders ended up being awesome. But yeah, a lot of people did that.
Yeah. So, and it's funny just thinking about how back then a sequel, how much could be improved down to like the first person camera, how different guards interact, how you even just Snake moves around, his ability to roll and stuff like that. It just is really staggering looking at the amount of progress that was made between those two games. And yeah, as I said, this was my favorite one. I have the most memories associated with this game, and I'm having a total blast playing through 2. And then depending on, 2 isn't very long, so I would imagine that I would just go straight to 3 after this. But just shout out Hideo Kojima, total G, just one of the absolute best. I know that he's full of himself. Dude, watching the credits for Metal Gear Solid 1, you could see that he already was putting his name a million times.
I know, it's like, it really is excessive. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It is absurd. That is his calling card.
But it's one of those things where it's like, I find that kind of annoying, but I also think that he is one of the best, the absolute best. So he kind of, for me, he gets to do that, I guess. Even if we find it a little annoying, it's like, yeah, he's a total G who's made so many great games. So yeah, I'm enjoying Metal Gear Solid. I'm really excited to play 3, because I know a lot of people think 3 is the best one. And so I'll have totally fresh eyes for that.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see what you think. I would disagree. I played 2 and 3 over the last few years, again, for Knockback, and yeah, I think 2 is the better game. Fat Man is the best. Love that
on
villain.
The skates, right?
Yeah.
I'm not there yet, but yeah, he's awesome. I remember that.
And the wine glass or whatever, his Merlot.
2 I love. 2. Like 3 has a lot that's a part of it. Like there's a lot of mechanics that are like really kind of subtle and really interesting that deepen it.
The camo, right? Kind of, that's a big thing, is like the
camouflaging and just eating, like having to eat and stuff like that. It's cool, but it's also kind of like it's kind of getting in the way of the game for me. Like I always love 2. Like 2 on Vita especially is awesome. I think like Vita is, in my opinion, like the best place to play that game.
I had a really hard time playing it on Vita because Vita doesn't have the press sensitive buttons, so it makes it really hard to aim for me on it.
Oh yeah,
yeah. Like I was lamenting, whether it was on this show or on social media, when I was trying to play it for Knockback. I was like, Jesus Christ, I cannot play this game. Like it wasn't that hard. I know it doesn't control that well, but I can still play games to some extent. Yeah. And then a lot of people were messaging me being like, you got to play the PS3 version. Like the Vita version is just so much more difficult. And I did. And I was like, oh, you're right. Because
it is harder, I guess. But like to me, the main thing about Metal Gear Solid 2 and the games in general that were really difficult to play on console for me was the menu. Like navigating your inventory was so annoying, like to me. And so like to have like the touch thing was like, oh, this has become like infinitely easier to me. Like the fact that I don't have to like scroll through like a million things to get to what I want. It's like, oh, touch there. I have the right thing equipped. I loved that. But that version, the HD version on Series X or whatever, is really, really good. If you manage to snag that before they screwed it up, that's a great way to play it too. If you want like a bigger screen, kind of more traditional way of playing it. I'm glad I got that game a while ago, because that sucks. It sucks that it's not available.
Yeah, they'll figure it out, I'm sure. Whatever footage they use
one day.
But yeah, the intro of that, he's like smoking a cigarette or something, right? Too, and
he's the Hudson River 4 years ago.
Yeah, it's good shit.
Yeah,
that's a special game. I would really love to see a remake of that at some point, and I think we will. But it seems like we'll get 3 first.
Also, shout out to how David Hayter says Metal Gear. I can hear it in my mind's eye. Metal Gear.
Your mind's ear, you mean?
What's that?
Your mind's ear, you mean?
My mind's. Oh yeah, I guess it would be your mind's ear. Wow.
Right. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. All right, Chris, let's move on to you. You says you're playing Resident Evil 4 Remake Mercenaries, which I'm also playing, although I did play. I'm not really playing it anymore. I played it for pretty extensively one day, but what do you make of it?
I think it's fun. I think it's cool. It's a nice little additive thing for Resident Evil. It's nice because I am in that mode where I do like I want to play Resident Evil, but I don't necessarily want to go through the story again. I'm kind of set with it. I'm like, all right, good. That's that. I enjoyed it. And so to kind of interface with the sandbox and kind of mess around with different characters and the arena style nature of it, it's fun. I think it works a lot. It works especially because you can move and shoot at the same time. So it feels a little bit more. It feels like this version of Resident Evil lends itself a little bit more to something like this than the original Resident Evil 4, which obviously is a little bit more defensive. I feel. But it's cool. Like I like playing as Louis. I like what's the guy in the gas mask's name?
Hunk? Oh, I don't know. I only unlocked Luis. I only played as.
Oh yeah, Luis. I've gotten everybody so far. I've gotten I don't know how many stages there are, but I've gotten 3. I don't know if there are any more than that. Really, the village, the castle, and the island.
Yeah. I got those 3 stages. You unlock each stage by completing each stage, and I think you unlock characters by using each character. So Leon unlocks Luis, and then Luis I think unlocks the next character. I just never used Luis because I saw that he was not good with up close combat, and that scared me. That sent me away.
Luis is cool though. He's got the rifle with the heat seeking scope on it.
Oh,
so it's pretty cool. And Krauser's fun. He's got like that super. He's got that infected mode where you could just like slash a bunch of people up. It's fun. It's nice, mindless, arcadey kind of run around, collect the power ups. I like that gas mask guy. I can't remember what the hell his name is, but the last guy you get, I think it's Hunk. I think, but I'm not super sure, or Hank or something. But his like special where you click in both sticks is just like unlimited ammo, so you just get to like shoot forever. This assault rifle, and it's super satisfying. It's fun.
Hunk is the character that you're looking for.
Yeah. But it's it's a solid little addition to Resident Evil. I think it works fairly well. I don't know if I have much to say about it because it's not that deep. It's kind of an arcade mode of it's just an arcadey version of the combat loop that you have in the main game. I do like that the village is there because that's like my favorite location.
Definitely.
I'm glad they were smart enough to put that in. They would be pretty dumb not to put the village into an arcade sequence, but it's cool. It's a light game. Like I'm playing it specifically because I don't have the bandwidth to play anything else right now as I prepare to travel. But it's solid.
Well, I saw that it was available, and I was still messing around. Like, do I want to get more trophies in Resident Evil 4 Remake? Am I done with it? And I don't know if I'm done with it or not, but I knew that by reading PSN profiles that there was an interesting thing with Mercenaries, that you could unlock the hand cannon, which is a mega powerful weapon, by just getting an S rank on each of the 3 stages. And to unlock the hand cannon in the normal game, I think you need to get an S+ ranking on professional, which requires you to play professional without New Game Plus. So, and I think you have to beat it like under 8 hours or something too. So they made it exponentially easier to get the platinum trophy in the game by merely releasing Mercenaries and making new routes to unlock some of this stuff. And I think that's pretty compelling to get people back into the loop, because when you have a game that you have to beat 4 or 5 or 6 times to get a platinum trophy, or just to unlock everything in the game, which people want to do, all the art and all the concepts and all the rest, to give them a little bit of a roundabout, I think is nice. It doesn't, you still have to beat the game and do all of that, but just not having to grind out these meaningless playthroughs just to get one item that you're going to need. And so I just wanted to give that a shout out. That's why I went and played Mercenaries. What I was shocked about with Mercenaries is it has no trophies. And I'm so shocked by that, especially because there's that new Ghostwire Tokyo update that came out that does have trophies. And you would just think that I think one is paid and one is obviously free, but you would just think there's definitely no reason why it shouldn't have trophies other than the reason that they just didn't do it. And that is just stupid. And they should definitely fix that. And they can fix that with a patch. And I think they really ought to. So, but I think it's fun too. But I only played as Leon. And the one thing I was going to say is it's very easy. And I was shocked. I read that on our Discord, someone's like, I got an S rank on the first try. And I was like, really? That's interesting. I wonder if I can do that. And I did on the village. I got an S rank in the first try, which is a score of 200,000 or higher. And then it became a little harder on the castle. The castle's where I struggled most. I probably had to try 5 or 6 times to get 200,000. And then on the island, I got 200,000 immediately. So
yeah, the castle's because you have to travel a lot. You have to run to a lot of different locations.
And there's the catapults and shit, you know?
Yeah. But yeah, I feel like S rank's a little too easy. Like I got it my first try on pretty much every single character and every single level. I think I didn't get the castle was the only one that I got like A or whatever, and it was on the front. And then I tried it again and I got S. But I was like, this isn't really difficult. I guess it's more about the high score, because that was what I was looking at. I was like, all right, how can I gave myself like I'm going to try to break 500,000.
Yeah, I think the thing is that the rank I think is tied specifically to the score, and I think once you hit 200,000, I don't think you can do any better. It's so weird that they would make it so low. You know? Yeah,
that's silly to me. I feel like the rank should be tied to, I don't know, time in between combos or something. Like, you know what I mean? Like efficiency, as opposed to just like a cumulative number that can
I agree.
I don't know.
That's how they judge your ranking in the regular game. They judge you by how many times you've died and how long it took, I think, and how many items you used. I think all of that plays into, and I think there are just certain things you cannot do if you want to get an S plus. Like I think on professional you have to save fewer than 15 times or something. And so there are other ways that they calculate things in the game, but they don't do that here. Nonetheless, cool free update. Of course, it was in the original game as well, but it's cool to see it back and excited to play that. And maybe I will go back. You're right. It doesn't require, like, we eat dinner at 7:30 and sometimes I'm just sitting around at like 7:05 or 7:10 and I'm just on my phone. And that was what I did actually one of those nights is I just popped on Mercenaries because I could just play it in that time and be done with it. And in that spirit, I was going through my games on my console just to see how much space I had and if I can delete anything. And I deleted a few things. But one game I noticed was still on my console was Returnal. So I booted it up and I went and messed around with the Tower of Sisyphus or whatever it's called, the free DLC, like the endless tower thing. And I immediately got clobbered and I'm like, I don't know how to play this game anymore. And it goes to reinforce my point from recent weeks about how DLC just needs to come really on top of the game. Because I don't know how am I going to get back to playing Returnal at the level at which I was at when I beat it. That took a lot for me to do that. It was frustrating, so I just immediately shut it off and went about my business. And instead, I went and played Octopath Traveler 2, which I'm still working on. And Winston G. McDaniel wrote in and said, hey, CDC, for Colin, I'm about 60 hours into Octopath Traveler 2 and wrapping up the final chapters for each of the characters. I'm mostly just curious to which characters you've gravitated towards and who you started with and if you're enjoying the incredible music in the game. Thank you for the exceptional content that you and your team produces. So I have a conundrum with Octopath Traveler 2. First of all, characters. There are 2 characters in particular I'm quite attracted to that I really like. The first is Particio, who's the merchant. I really like that story. I'm not going to spoil anything here, but I really like his story about his upbringing or whatever as a merchant. It's a pretty interesting. And then Ochette, the hunter. I just think she's cute, and I like the idea of it. Reminds me a little bit of Gao in Final Fantasy VI about interacting with enemies and stealing their skills and doing all of that. And so I dig her as well, but there's the major problem with this game, which Micah tells me was in the first game she felt and she's experiencing in the second game, and she's really deep into the second game, much deeper than I am, is I don't feel like it's very coherent. Like, I don't know why I'm doing anything. Why are these characters together? They literally, and this isn't a spoiler, but you have a choice of what character you want to begin with, right? And then and I started with Throne, who Micah told me was reportedly like a safe character to start with, because sometimes you can get more. You're trying to build a party. You eventually get 8 characters, but you're trying to get like, your healer and all these things. You kind of should be mindful of all those things. So I went with Throne, who's like a thief type character. But I realized these individual stories in Octopath Traveler 2 are really good, really compelling, really well written, but they're vignettes. as we all know. I mean, that's what the game's all about. But there's like vignettes within vignettes. These kind of opening chapters and these introductions to these characters. And then what literally happens is you have a character and then you go and find another character. And when you find a character, it just says like, do you want to go experience their vignette? And you say yes, and you experience their vignette in sort of a memory. And then they join your party and then you just go about your way. And then you find the next character and so on. And I know that that's kind of the intent. And I know that there must be more to why they combine, but I don't think I should be 20 something hours into a game and kind of just feel like I don't really know what the fuck's going on. And I understand fully why this game is so critically acclaimed and why people love it. It's beautiful. The voice acting, as I said, is really stunning and fitting in this 2D HD kind of style that they do. The writing is sublime and really well done. The character development, there's just one character. It's I brought up her name because I didn't want to forget, Cassie the apothecary, which is like the typical, and I will spoil this because I don't care. Because it's not a spoiler if you played any role-playing game ever. She's like the person that forgot her past. It's like when I met her, I was like, oh my God. But other than that, the writing is top-notch. The combat system is amongst the very best I've ever played in a turn-based role-playing game, bar none. Just absolutely astounding and astonishingly good. I just don't know that I don't know that it all fits in a mega coherent way. I just have a hard time with it in that regard. I don't like games where I don't like new games where I don't know why I'm doing what I'm doing. If I'm playing Phantasy Star 2 or Final Fantasy 3 or something, then maybe there's a little bit of meaninglessness to it all. And certain franchises kind of get away with it, like Dragon Quest always kind of gets away with an ethereal kind of, you don't really know what the fuck's going on sort of thing. But this, I feel like it's so grounded and the vignettes are so powerful and the character development is so interesting. You got to bind them together quicker. If the whole payoff is like, wow, they all get together and something magical happens, I'm like, that's a long ass time to make me to have some sort of payoff of all these amazing personalities coming together. But I do like the structure of the game a lot. I like how each character has their own chapters. They're very clear with the recommended levels, and there's a lot of ancillary things to do and side quests. But I also think it's a little bit vague, and I think it doesn't read quite well as a role-playing game in some ways. So I have some problems with it too. I think it's very, very good. And I totally understand why people love it, but I just don't know if it's got me. And I think it could be more of a me problem than the game problem too, because Chained Echoes, which was also really awesome, I just kind of lost my way with that too when I played it. Maybe I'm just not in the space for these kinds of games, because those are like the two most critically acclaimed games of their kind in the last 6 months or more. So yeah, that's what I'm playing, Octopath Traveler 2. I'll keep working through it, but as I said, we're on the precipice of both Mega Man Legacy Collection for Battle Network, and we are on the precipice of the Pixel remasters for Final Fantasy, which again we'll talk about later. So I don't know if Octopath Traveler 2 is going to have much more time, at least right now. All right, guys, let's get into the news. Few things to get through. Big news item this week. Long time coming. Let's talk about it. Number one, after several years of out-and-out futility, Sony and its developer Media Molecule have announced that the ambitious yet unsuccessful game creation tool Dreams will no longer be supported with new content, updates, and so on as of September 1st later this year. Word comes by way of a post on the official Dreams website, which extensively outlined Dreams' present and immediate future. The team wrote in part, quote, "As we continue to evaluate and evolve our priorities for the studio and Dreams, we've made the difficult decision to discontinue live support for Dreams after September 1st, 2023, to shift our focus to an exciting new project. You'll continue to be able to play, create, and share Dreams with others after September, but we won't be releasing any more updates to the game or events such as Dreamscom, All Hallows Dreams, or the Impy Awards," end quote. A few remaining updates will release in the coming months, and Dreams will slowly morph into a holding pattern of sorts with a major server migration, quote, "necessary to preserve the security and stability of Dreams," end quote, being deployed. At that time, features like Twitch support, social connectivity, activity feeds, and more will be disabled, and trial versions of Dreams will need to be converted to paid or relinquished. There's some vital information at the bottom of the extensive post that seems to have gone overlooked by many sources, and it speaks to both what Media Molecule's future may be and why Dreams is being shut down. They wrote in part, quote, "Media Molecule will continue to work on bringing joyful, playful, innovative experiences to players around the world. We're currently working on a new project that we're not ready to talk about at this stage, but stay tuned for more information in the future," end quote. They later wrote, quote, "We're very proud of Dreams and grateful for the way you, the community, have embraced all it has to offer. Whilst we've always had the desire to build on the foundations of Dreams and expand the experience, when reviewing our plans, we were not able to define a sustainable path. We made the decision to change the studio product strategy. This is obviously disappointing to many people inside and outside of Media Molecule. However, we are incredibly excited for what will come next, end quote. And in case it's unclear, quote, yes, you will still be able to access and play, create and share Dreams after the September update, end quote. Dreams first tacitly revealed at PlayStation 4's reveal event in early 2013 before being officially announced the following year, was an ambitious suite of game creation tools honed by arguably Sony's most creative team. However, the product took forever to get to market, and it never hit like they had hoped. Indeed, the game was originally slated to enter beta and potentially be released as soon as 2016, with yearly promises each subsequent year until the game entered so-called early access in 2019. A full release followed the following year. It did receive PSVR support, but it never received a native PlayStation 5 port or, perhaps most importantly, a PC port. Media Molecule, the team behind Little Big Planet, one of PS3's earliest and most important hits, was purchased in 2010 in the shadow of Little Big Planet 2's launch in early 2011. With the exception of Tearaway, which came to Vita in 2013 by way of a smaller sub-team within Media Molecule, Dreams is the only project the team has released in 12 years. Before we get into the nitty-gritty, some people wrote in. I'm curious to get your guys' thoughts. Let's go to you, Dustin.
Yeah, I feel like the only aspect to me that is surprising is that we knew that Dreams was not in a good spot for a long time. And so there was kind of two paths I think that they could have taken. They could do this and kind of let it die and keep it maintained in some fashion, but move on. Or they would need to basically kind of relaunch the game, have it make sure it works on PlayStation 5, get a PC version going. And I think most importantly, the thing that we've talked about so many times on this show is an export feature. Figure out a way for people that have dedicated the time into pouring stuff into this product development or this game development tool to be able to make a game or something. And obviously doing those things that I just mentioned would be a lot of work and a lot of money. And I'm sure that Sony was looking at this and thought, well, it's time to just move on. And at this point, it probably is the right decision. Those suggestions that I made on that alternate path should have been done a long time ago if they wanted any prayer of Dreams becoming this platform or this tool set that they maybe wanted it to be, but they just couldn't execute when they needed to. So it's unfortunate in that I think that if you were to summarize what Dreams is on paper and get a brief look at it from the game, there is something there, but they just fumbled the rollout so incredibly badly, and then the support afterwards, that it's no surprise that this is the outcome.
Yeah, I agree. It's well, I'm going to save my thoughts because I have a lot to say. I don't want to go on and on without giving Chris a chance here to get in here too. So what do you think, Chris? Dreams, no more.
I mean, it feels like we've seen the writing on the walls for this for a while at this point. So, I mean, the only thing that comes to mind is, all right, so Media Molecule is presumably moving on to do something else. But also, part of me is like, what could they possibly do now? Because so many of the people arguably responsible for making, Little Big Planet and the games at Media Molecule are probably gone by now. So like my curiosity is, with the next Media Molecule whatever project, game, how much of, like, how Media Molecule will it be at this point? Because you have to imagine level designers are gone. Level designers probably haven't been there for a while. You have to imagine that the studio is just generally a lot smaller. I don't know. Like, it bothers me that it took them this long to see what, or this long to make a definitive move like this, when we've kind of known this for years. It just feels like wasted time to me.
Yeah. That's the major thing for me too. And I have a lot to say about this, and I'll try to be as concise as I can, but this is just mismanaged time and mismanaged resources at a time where Sony doesn't necessitate a difference maker because their games all seem to sell fairly well, even though they're often talked about as being exactly the same in terms of aesthetic or style. in some ways, you know, the third person over the shoulder sort of thing. But Media Molecule, what made them special and what made Sony acquire them to begin with after Little Big Planet's success and when they began developing Little Big Planet 2 was to differentiate themselves from other studios that they had purchased around the same time. You know, around that same time, Sony also buys Guerrilla, Sony also buys Sucker Punch, Sony also buys Evolution, which they later shut down. And these things need a differentiator. And I think Media Molecule was just taken off the board for no perceived reason for a really long time over this very ill-conceived thing. And it's kind of haunting because why would you let them do that? I mean, if you think about Little Big Planet 2 coming out in 2011 and in early 2011, and then just going all of that time, think of all of the games that came out since Little Big Planet 2 came out, say from Naughty Dog. Since Little Big Planet 2 came out, Naughty Dog released Uncharted 3, The Last of Us, Uncharted 4, The Lost Legacy, The Last of Us Part 2, and they will have released Factions, no doubt, by the time Media Molecule releases another game. I'm not calling them, they're not apples to apples. Media Molecule is a much smaller team with a different charge. But the point is think about all of the production you could have gotten out of them if you didn't waste all of your time on this boondoggle. Dreams is a bad idea. And you know how you know it's a bad idea? Because no one used it except for a small group of people. It never broke through. It was a bad idea. It was a bad idea to let them make it. It was a bad idea to let them work on it for so long. It was a bad idea that sunken cost fallacy through the roof for Dreams. I think it's widely believed that Dreams is an amazing product, but it doesn't make it a good idea. As Dustin said, when you have no way to why are you building games on it if you can't do anything with them? You can't export them. Sony promised, I went and read about it before the show. Sony at one time promised that they were going to try to make a way for you to license your games, to get them out. This could have been a conduit to get games on the PlayStation Network. I mean, if there was any thought put into how you could actually facilitate any of this, instead, it's just a place where you go and fuck around in isolation for a group of people that's exceedingly small, in which you can only share your content by exporting it as a video, not as a game or a playable experience.
Yeah.
This is what you waste all of these years on. It's crazy. Yeah. The only reason, in my opinion, and I'm sorry to interrupt you, Chris, you come in, is just Media Molecule would be shut down. And I don't want anyone to lose their jobs. That's not what I'm saying. But Media Molecule, if BAFTA specifically wasn't so fond of the studio, which I think is one huge thing, the fact that they're incredibly small, and the fact that we seem to be in a talent arms race right now, so you don't necessarily want to shut things down. But I don't know what the hell Media Molecule has been doing or why Sony has allowed them to go down this really empty road that, and as you said, half of their leadership team left. A majority of their founders are gone. And they're very much in a BioWare-like situation where you wonder who they even are anymore, the ship of Theseus, as we bring up sometimes on the show. And so that's going to matter too. When you think about employing game designers and being employed as a game designer at Media Molecule, what have you done? Like, I would be busting through the fucking roof, man.
Yeah.
You know, I can understand if you're an engineer or you're a tools guy or anything like that, but this was a waste of time, and it's a real shame. And they didn't do anything to help it either. And that's why I just believe this in the sunk cost fallacy. It's probably not that deep because, again, I would imagine Media Molecule runs on a budget maybe under 10 or $15 million a year. You would assume something like that. I mean, I don't think it's like that crazy expensive. They don't employ that many people. But why not Media Molecule had heart and soul with Little Big Planet and Little Big Planet 2 and Tearaway. And why don't you give your guys something to make, a game. That's what we desire, a game, not a closed tool, a set of tools with no PS5, no PC, no purpose, wasted momentum. And I think it's a shame. I'm sad. I know some people are sad about it, but you could just read even the numbers, right? I looked at Media Molecule's announcement on Twitter, and it's a few thousand likes or like retweets and interaction. It's not crazy. The numbers speak for themselves. I said back in the day when we first started, or around the time we first started doing Sacred Symbols, that you could start reading into Dream's lack of success immediately because they they explicitly said they were going to limit early access in sales once it reached a certain sales threshold, which it never reached in 1 year. And so you could tell from the very beginning that they were overshooting and not understanding the product, and they just insisted. And so we'll see what happens. I'll be very interested to know what goes on next for them. I'm glad, and I think it's essential that they stay with whimsy. They use the word joyful, which I think is good. I think we need some of that in PlayStation's ecosystem. It would be nice to have gotten. We could have gotten 2 or 3 Media Molecule bangers in the time that Dreams has been percolating and out. So just they wasted basically. I mean, if they're just spooling up now, they wasted basically 2 generations, if not more. Just straight up. I don't understand whose idea that was, but a rare miss for PlayStation first party, in my opinion. And I think Media Molecule is lucky that they were probably mismanaged so badly into the situation that they can't possibly be blamed for the outcome. Because again, no one says Dreams is bad. It's just a bad idea.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see what the audience has to say here. A lot of you wrote in. Jamin Fuller wrote in, said, "Hey CDC, with the recent news about Media Molecule ending support for Dreams, what are your thoughts for how the studio was able to weather this time to remain open at all? I feel like 2 generations ago, a situation like this would have shut the studio down, just like how Evolution Studios was closed. Do you think the demand for talent these days has a lot to do with them still being open? In other words, it would hurt Sony more to give up the talent than to close the studio. Do you think there is something we're missing about Media Molecule's involvement in PlayStation, maybe as a support studio? I'd love to hear your thoughts." No, I mean, I think common sense says that when you have BAFTA support in your home country, one of your, Reddy herself is a BAFTA fellow. Like Miyamoto is a BAFTA fellow. So like once you become a BAFTA, and we went into that in recent episodes, like once you become a BAFTA fellow, it's a big deal. And I just think that that's just too much. And I think they might not give a shit. I mean, that could be possible. I think that they might be like, whatever, man, this company doesn't cost us anything, basically. We're just keeping them live. It's kind of like a skunk works situation where they're just doing things. But I feel like in a world of asset management, which is vital in video games, I don't understand why you would not want to put them on the board every 3 or 4 years with a new game. And it doesn't have to be Little Big Planet, and it shouldn't be Little Big Planet or Sackboy. I think that probably has run its course and ironically run its course through the hands of other studios, mainly Sumo Digital. But I just think we need more of that special flair. And you're saying is that the retain members of the staff. I'm not so sure how many people, like Chris was saying, like, I don't know if anyone's even really left. I have no idea. I'm too lazy to do it, to be honest with you. It's going to a lot of work, but you can do a pretty easy meta analysis by just going to Moby Games, going to Little Big Planet 2's credits, and then just cross-referencing who's left. Or even going to Tearaway, although that was a smaller team, or going to Dreams. But I'm not sure that Dreams will even tell you the full story either. And then you can go to like LinkedIn and just tie those things together and do that. But I'm not doing that. Someone else can do it. So my assumption is that this was done mostly because they are cheap to run and they have critical acclaim, even though they don't sell games. And clearly Dreams was a failure. And I think admitting Dreams was a failure quicker would have made the studio look worse. And I don't know, man. It's an interesting situation. It's that Jeremy C. wrote in, though, and said, "Hey, Merry Gents, I just want to ask, what is next for Media Molecule? I figured layoffs are imminent and can't see how they could have made enough money for the last few years to keep afloat while they develop a new game. Is the studio that important to the PlayStation family? I don't wish to see them go, but I can't help but to expect the worst and see them get walked into the sunset if their next endeavors don't meet expectations. Thank you, and give the chicken a rest." Thank you, Jeremy C., for writing in. Let's go around the horn. I mean, Chris, what would you want to? Do you have a vision for a Media Molecule game that you would want to see? I mean, what would you want out of them?
Do I have a vision for the next for a new Media Molecule game?
Yeah.
I feel like that would be their job. They make such unique experiences. I wouldn't even know how to conceptualize what their next thing should be, but I would hope that it's a game. I didn't think that I would. I didn't think that would have to be a clarification. But ideally, a game would be nice. I don't know. I really, because like I said, like earlier, I just feel like so much of the talent that comprised a lot of that tone or that was the key ingredient to a lot of that tone, it's probably not present anymore. And so whatever they can make, it's going to be compromised in some way. I would imagine. Like, no matter what it is, even if it's very good, there's part of my brain that feels like if the next media molecule game comes out in however many years, say like 2025 or something, hypothetically, even if it's very, very good, I'm going to be wondering how good it could have been beyond that had they retained a lot of that talent that is undoubtedly gone. So I really don't know. I don't know what their expertise is now. They only really have one type of genre under their belt, which is, side scroller kind of platformer type deal, because the last 10 years were spent building a weird, like, themed version of Unity for console, which is, it's not a genre exactly. So like, and they're definitely not going to do this again.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, no, definitely not. I mean, they were explicit saying like it's not Dreams 2. It's not anything to do with Dreams. And I'd be like, well, that's I mean,
yeah.
Thank God, dude. But Dustin, what do you think? What would you like to see from the future of Media Molecule?
Ideally, I would like to see something that is, from a visual perspective, totally different, which I guess Dreams had a bit of a different style from Little Big Planet, but going back to the arts and crafts type aesthetic, probably it's just not fresh anymore. They did it with Little Big Planet, they did it with Tearaway, and Nintendo has done it quite a bit with like Yoshi's Crafted World and some other stuff. So I would hope there would be something more unique. I do think that level creation and customization is something core to the DNA of that studio, but I think that they could do that again. They just need to contain themselves. Like, for example, if they made a game that was almost like Little Big Planet, but instead of 2D, it's a game where you can make a 3D platformer, something in the style of, so to say, like Mario 64 or something like that, where they can create a full-fledged game like they did with Little Big Planet, a full-fledged platformer, and then you could basically use the Dream toolset and cut it down significantly. So it's no longer, hey, you can make an entire another game within our game, but hey, you can make a really awesome level and we have really cool, unique tools that it's no longer something that someone looks at and thinks, oh, I need to invest my life in order to create something in this game. It's more, ooh, I have a cool idea for a level and these tools will make it easy for me to implement. Almost something along the lines of Halo Forge, I think, could be kind of the framework or the scope of what they could look at. And I think something like that would be super cool. Creating levels and being able to download people's levels is a cool thing. It's just that I think with Dreams, it just got too out of hand and there were so many unfinished and janky projects on Dreams because the tools were very, very advanced. So if, like I said, if you can scope that in to a more focused approach, I think a lot of cool things could get done.
Yeah. The problem with Dreams wasn't that it wasn't cool. The problem is that it was by itself. Like, Dreams should have been, if anything, like the entire suite of Dreams should have been a mode in a, like, that was like secondary to a game that was part of it. You know, it's the same thing with Forge, with Halo, where it's like you could build an insane amount of stuff in that Forge mode, and people love it. People love Halo for that specifically, like the creation aspect of it and the community aspect of sharing creations with other players and watching those creations get thrown into matchmaking. But like, there's still a game there. If you don't want to create shit, that's fine, because you bought a game to play. And you could just play the game. You could play the single player. You could play the multiplayer. And guess what? Even if you're not interested in creation, you can still play the stuff that other people create, and then you get value out of the game for that. Dreams was just all creation. And if you're not interested in that, then that's it. Like, no, you're not going to get people who just want to play the game because there is no game. It's weird, man. Like, what's crazy about it too is that they had so many years to understand that. You know what I mean? Like they could have built this robust tool alongside something easily, I think.
Well, I think that by the time they realized that, as I understand it, by the time they realized that they needed more game inside the game, and they make these different vignette style games, it's like, that's not a game.
Right.
Like the game is how would it all be coherent together. And they actually could have done some crazy shit by having a campaign at the center of Dreams.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, exactly. That uses all of the different stuff. Exactly. So I agree with you completely. And I was clicking away over here because I went on Crunchbase, which is always an interesting website to go to look at information about companies. And I thought this was just telling. So it says that the company is between 11 and 50 people. We know that. We don't know exactly, but it only scrapes 8 people from LinkedIn on that have Media Molecule listed as their employer. Now, that's not holistic. Of course, a lot of people aren't on LinkedIn, but Sucker Punch scrapes 90. Naughty Dog scrapes 177. So I'm saying this because I think Media Molecule is working bare bones. Like, it sounds like the company is very, very, very small right now. And that could be good. You create a Pixel Opus style Media Molecule. You know, I hate to say that because Media Molecule was around first, but Pixel Opus has put out at least a game more recently and seems to have taken the banner of that whimsy. So hopefully they get it together. But the thing about Media Molecule's failure with Dreams is that I don't necessarily blame them. You give yourself so much rope, you can hang yourself with it. Like, someone gave them the rope, and that's Sony. And I don't know what about that. I don't know why. Listen, I've said this before. I went to a dinner with some people from Media Molecule about 10 years ago in Germany at Gamescom, and they were talking to me about this stuff. And I remember them specifically saying something about PlayStation Move controllers to use to create this game they're making. And I'm like, that's a really bad idea. And one of them was like, why do you think that is? And was like really inquisitive about that. And I'm like, no one's telling you this, that like you shouldn't make a game around PlayStation Move. And of course, lo and behold, we see at the PlayStation press conference showing off in 2013, the PS4, of them using Move controllers for this game. And it's like, you know, why are people allowing you to just do whatever you want? There's got to be some sort of focus on the games. And I don't think Dreams would have been a bad idea if they just engineered it better. And I don't mean from a literal standpoint. I mean, just engineer a better situation for it around it. Export tools, real campaign, real reasons to be there. It failed on all these fronts. I just feel like the amount of cope with Dreams all of these years for a small group of people has been astounding to behold. There's just people that don't get, like, there's a small group of people that don't get that this thing can't hang on without a larger group of people playing it, and that they weren't even curious to try to bring it to PC, I think says a lot about its potential.
Yeah, that's confusing to me, because that was like the easy. Well, I mean, to me, it's like one of those things where it's like if you didn't put it on PC, presumably because like, well, it's too much effort, and also, you know, it's not going to succeed on PC. It's like, bro, if it's not going to succeed on PC, it's dead on the PlayStation. You know, like that's I so all of the decision making is confusing, and I understand what people are talking about, like when they're like, oh, you know, well, Dreams is cool, and you know, it doesn't matter if it gets, you know, widespread appeal, because like what it is like really, really awesome. And that's fair, I suppose. But I mean, you can't be surprised when it shuts down then. It's kind of, I don't know, it's kind of like, I don't know, any like really inaccessible but innovative TV show. You know, I think about like Community and like Arrested Development and stuff like that, where it's like, oh, they got 3 seasons and then they were just like killed immediately. And it's like, they were great shows for sure, but they didn't capture the audience that like a Friends or something would have captured. Except the difference here is that Dreams wasn't a show. It was Celtics. It was a script writing software. And so it's like extra weird that, I don't know. It's a confusing. I really can't wait for them to make a game again. I'll put it that way.
Well, apparently this is happening. It sounds like pre-production, and we'll have to keep an eye on their hiring and what they're going to end up doing here with that. I don't know. there's both a lot of expectations and just no expectations whatsoever, because I
Right,
do think it's a
yeah.
ship of Theseus situation with them at this point.
Yeah.
I mean, you can imagine, I haven't looked, but like how many people left Media Molecule to go work at Sumo Digital? I mean, why wouldn't you? If they were making all these Little Big Planet games and that's what you made, I would assume there's got to be more than a few people that migrated over there, right? They're in the same country.
Yeah.
All right. Number 2, this one's for you, Dustin. In news both surprising and unsurprising, it seems fairly certain that Sega-owned imprint Atlus is working on a remake of their hit 2006 JRPG Persona 3. The evidence is twofold, and it sure is compelling, as collected by our friends over at website Gamatsu, who add a little reporting of their own. For starters, there's footage. As explained by the website, a reel of footage purported to be for internal use at Sega in 2021 shows not only a Persona 3 remake, but footage for Sonic Frontiers, which wasn't announced at the time, but which came out last fall, and what appears to be a remake of Jet Set Radio, which has been rumored in the past. If that wasn't compelling enough, however, there's another detail worth reporting. A website exists called p3re.jp, and its Whois information points to the same owner of p5r.jp, which, as you may have guessed, was Persona 5 Royal's web domain. This new web domain was only secured in recent months, though Gamatsu reports that its understanding is that a Persona 3 remake has been in the works at P Studio for several years. And of course, there's every reason to believe this is happening. When Persona 3 first launched on PlayStation 2 in Japan in 2006 and in the West in 2007, Persona wasn't remotely the franchise it has since become, particularly outside of Japan. An upgraded version followed on PS2 in 2007 and 2008, with a PSP port launching in 2009 and 2010, depending on your territory. And of course, a digital version of the game came to PlayStation 4 earlier this year, much to the delight of many. So it's fairly clear that whatever this is, it's not a mere re-release, a la those 2 additional Persona 3 offerings, or like Persona 4 Golden and Persona 5 Royal, which launched in 2012 and 2019, respectively, with the original games launching in 2008 and 2016. The last we saw of Persona's mainstream franchise was the aforementioned Royal, though a Musou called Persona 5 Strikers came to Western PS4s in 2021. Persona, once known fully as Shin Megami Tensei Persona, is itself a spin-off of that aforementioned series. The individual numbered games are unrelated to each other, like Final Fantasy games, only sharing certain binding elements that make them uniquely Persona. The series actually began on PS1 with Revelations Persona, which quietly came to console in 1996. It was followed by a sequel in 2000, though an interstitial game was launched only in Japan that year before. Persona 3 added the now infamous social links to the series, and a Persona 6 is widely understood to also be in development at Atlus and Sega-owned P Studio. All right. Dustin, take it away. What are your thoughts?
This is very exciting because for a lot of Persona fans, a lot of people got in at 4. And not to say there aren't a lot of fans of 3. There are tons of them. But many of us got in at 4, and even more, I would say, got in at 5. And I've never fully played Persona 3, but it's my understanding that it is really, really fantastic. And for the people that have played, we'll say the 3 modern Persona games, as in 3, 4, and 5, many of them consider it the best one, and also one of the darkest of the 3, which I think sounds really cool. And so this is really exciting to see Atlus go in and give it the remake treatment. We've talked about how the recent re-release wasn't really, at least for me, what I would have wanted to see, being that it was a port of, I wouldn't say an inferior version of the game, but not the one I would want to play. It was the port of the PSP version, which wasn't quite the same in terms of how you interact and navigate around the world. And but it had some advantages in how the combat works. So to me, the thought of this, I can't see a way that they would screw this up and somehow not make the game better. Really, all they need to do, they just keep the story, upgrade the visuals, upgrade the combat, and maybe do some stuff in order to make the dungeon sequences a little more unique. But to me, this just seems like a home run where they can have another great Persona game out. It's a surefire home run. And especially for, like I said, the people that are getting in, that got in after Persona 3, a lot of us really want to play this game and want to play a new awesome version of it. And like I said, they had this new version, but it wasn't really quite ideal. So this is really exciting. And I'm just curious what the plans are overall with Persona, because I'm guessing this is going to come out significantly before Persona 6. But it was weird because last year, when they were doing the Persona anniversary stuff, it all felt like it was leading up to an announcement of Persona 6 that eventually did not happen. And some people theorized that plans had changed throughout that lead up where they decided they weren't ready to show it yet, which may be smart in the fact that Persona 5 had such a long lead up of when it was announced and when it came out. And maybe they decided they didn't want to do that again, which I personally appreciate. Just there's no problem. We're willing to wait. And especially if you have a awesome looking remake in the pipeline, just keep it close. But it's important to remember one last thing is that the team behind Persona, which is P Studio, they were working and announced a new project called Project Re-Fantasy that I'm wondering if at this point is just completely canceled because we haven't heard about anything for literally years. I don't know how many years exactly, but this game has totally gone dark.
And we see, are there any assets for that?
Yeah, there is one art asset. Actually, I misspoke. This is Studio Zero, I believe. So a lot of the Persona team that worked on those games were supposedly working on this. And maybe it was just one of those things where the monumental success of Persona 5 made them have to reorganize how they were doing things. So either way, exciting times for Persona fans. And I'm desperate to know more about this remake.
Yeah, we'll see. Yeah, this is interesting. I don't remember this. Yeah, announced in 2016. Atlus fans first heard word. The studio's great. Yeah, I wonder what happened to that. Very interesting. COVID fucked a lot of things up, though, I think.
Yeah.
And of course, I think, Persona 6 is going to be huge. Just absolutely huge. And I was thinking, I'm like, why Persona 3? Why not go and remake the first one? But in reading more about Persona, having never played those games before the first three, I realized that the social links were not added till the third game, which is the thing people really love, although they all have like the high school kids setting. But there's also, and I am confused. I got to read more about it. I'm a little confused. I'll go. No one has to write in about it. I'll go read about it. But there are 2 different Persona 2s as well.
Yes.
And one of them never even came out west. And you would think that you would want to maybe get that out there as well. I wonder if this all culminates in a Suikoden-like release of just those early games as is, or maybe with some mild updates to just get. In other words, I'm confused why they wouldn't want to just do that. People would buy the shit out of those. Probably hundreds of thousands of people would buy Persona Revelations or whatever the hell it's called, Revelations Persona, the first game. I also heard that the localization of that game, the first Persona game in the West, is not good. That it's radically different than it was in the Japanese version. So there's reasons to go back. I'd be very curious about that, but maybe they're afraid of kind of showing too much or that there's not enough of that interest. What is this?
Yeah, so I've mentioned this on the show before, but it's worth mentioning again that Persona 2 totally has Hitler in it. Just straight up. And they changed him for the US release where they call him the Fuhrer and he's got sunglasses on. It's like a bad disguised Hitler.
That's so weird.
So maybe they're looking at that and thinking, well, we might need to revamp some things with that game in order to do that. But I always find that hilarious. I want to own that game very badly. It is one of the most expensive PS1 games.
Oh, interesting. How much?
I think it's like $300. Here, I'll take just a quick look at price charting. Let's see, Persona 2, Eternal Punishment, complete price $375.
Wow,
for that.
It's almost like if you just want this shit, you just got to buy it now. You know, like if you really want, that's never going to get any better, probably.
No.
Although we watch a lot of Antiques Roadshow and they do these updates sometimes, like 20 years later, and sometimes the prices go down on these things. So. Maybe, but I just doubt it with things like this.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on. I'm sick of talking about Persona. Nerds. Number 3. A niche legal blog has come to the attention of the gaming industry in recent days due primarily to 2 different stories published under its banner. The blog in question is called Foss Patents, a website run by a man named Florian Muller. As you may have guessed, this blog in question deals with patents, particularly software patents, and so this person understands his particular lane. Government-secured patents are the lifeblood of modern industry and a benchmark of capitalism. Using them, organizations and individuals can minutely protect their inventions and innovations. And as we often report on this podcast, an electronics company like Sony files patents on a constant basis, often for technologies it has no intentions of using commercially. Thing is, many of the patents are indeed meant for commercial use. And FOSS Patents discovered something interesting about these patents, something that has gone unreported except for a note from website GamesRant that spurred on their investigation. And no fewer than a dozen PlayStation-related patents spanning back more than a decade and presented as only a sampling of the true number. Sony explicitly refers to its competitors as inferior. One patent reads in part, quote, for example, an end-user device may be a personal computer, a home entertainment system like Sony PlayStation 2 or Sony PlayStation 3 or Sony PlayStation 4, a portable gaming device like Sony PSP or Sony Vita, or a home entertainment system of a different, albeit inferior manufacturer, end quote. Similar language is used in patents for things like animation tech, digital code redemption, multiplayer management, and more. And interestingly, the blog's writer notes that, quote, Sony is obviously the kind of client many patent attorneys want. If a small company went to the same patent attorneys and wanted them to file patent specifications that contain such an outrageous passage, most patent attorneys would decline to attach their names to it, end quote. Meanwhile, in other Sony-related legal happenings, it appears that a once-dismissed lawsuit in Northern California has been revived, one filed by purportedly aggrieved PlayStation consumers attempting to stop the Microsoft acquisition of Activision. The interesting meat here, according to FOSS Patents, is that Sony is apparently openly cooperating with the plaintiffs in this case, providing them with mostly redacted information to support their case. And it goes deeper because, as noted, this lawsuit was dismissed last year before being refiled, and this new filing is different. Quote, the document is stylistically distinct from the original complaint. There is a possibility of Sony's outside counsel having ghostwritten some or all of the new passages, end quote. I'm not quite sure what to say about this. What do you think about this, Chris? Sony bravado putting in their patents that everything made is inferior to them kind of goes along with the territory, I think, of the way they seem to act.
Yeah, I mean, this it's in character, I guess is the way to really put it. But at the same time, like, this is all of this is anytime we get into the realm of like patents and like lawyers getting involved and like ghostwriting and like anything court related, I look at it and I'm like, I don't know the first thing about any of this. You know what I mean? It's so immediately outside of any of my fields of expertise that I'm like, is this a normal thing? Like, is this common for a company to like kind of like ghostwrite previously closed and reopened? You know what I mean? Like all of this, like all
yeah,
the
no,
ingredients here.
I don't with the second case. I don't know if that's common, like outside counsel kind of assisting. I would assume it must be on the up and up, or they wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
But I guess what it suggests is that Sony is perhaps in a petty stance now, trying to just throw any wrench they can into the works now that this train seems to be moving. But I find it all very interesting. What do you think, Dustin?
Yeah, well, it's one of those things where in some sense, if you're creating something, then you should strive to be the best and consider your competitors inferior, but maybe not on a patent that you write out. It seems a little silly. I was thinking about this this other lawsuit that maybe could this be Jim Ryan's nephew, or maybe even Jim Ryan in a disguise? You know, maybe it's John Bryan who's filing. Yeah. You know, he's got the disguise on to file the lawsuit to try to help him out. You know, Jim is a mischievous man for all we know.
Yeah,
he could be pulling all kinds of strings.
I'm interested to see what goes with this gamer lawsuit. Everyone's calling it the gamer lawsuit, which I think is pretty funny. Like, the gamers are suing, and it is weird because, like, what I read some of the lawsuit. You can go read it if you want out there. It's like 50 pages long. I was kind of wondering, like, why are you making any of these arguments as an individual? I don't understand this. This is weird. It sucks, I guess, if you can perceive it in certain ways, but I don't know why you're suing over it.
Yeah.
Very, very weird. Are you
the
tired?
Gamers are rising
You're
up.
yawning a lot today. Are you tired?
Yeah, well, I'm prepared. I didn't get a lot of sleep today, like this morning, specifically because I have a red eye tonight. So I'm trying to like fight through and like, because I have to eat a lot today also. So I'm trying to like get myself so tired that when I'm on the plane, I just pass. I pass away.
You pass away.
Yeah. It's a good strategy generally, but I apologize for the yawning.
No, it's okay. Number 4. According to research conducted by website The Verge, it appears PlayStation may be gearing up for a more calculated and robust move into cloud gaming, which perhaps puts the rumored new Sony handheld purportedly codenamed Q-Lite and reported on during last week's episode into some context. Sony is apparently in the midst of hiring for 22 separate cloud gaming related positions, according to the website's spidering of job listings for roles like Director of Product Management for Cloud Gaming. The website notes in part, quote, that the person won't be alone. Sony is also hiring 5 senior platform engineers, 3 software engineers, 2 technical project managers, and at least 1 technical writer, 4 reliability engineers, and a manager, an additional DevOps engineer, a junior network engineer, a senior business intelligence analyst, a security architect, and a network capacity planner. These roles, according to listings since taken down by Sony but backed up by The Verge, note that applicants will have, quote, the opportunity to lead the charge in the cloud gaming revolution, end quote, acknowledging that, quote, cloud gaming is on the way to becoming a major part of the gaming industry, end quote. As you may recall, Sony first explored cloud-style gaming with its purchase of Gaikai for $500 million more than a decade ago. That service morphed into PlayStation Now, which is now turned into the new PlayStation Plus format we're so used to. One thing that is for sure, however, is that Sony's arch rival in the gaming space, Microsoft, is heavily investing in a cloud gaming initiative of its own, buttressed by previously reported Sony patents surrounding cloud gaming, some authored by none other than Mark Cerny himself, and with reliable rumors swirling of a dedicated remote play device in the offing. It's clear Sony is going to have much more to say in this space in the months and years to come. Very compelling reporting by The Verge. I think that there's obviously smoke and therefore fire here. Dustin, cloud gaming. I mean, are they ever going to make this work? I know Microsoft is very serious about it. Some people suggest that Series X's might be difficult to find in part because they're using them to build their stacks. But I'm wondering what you think.
It's one of those things where I right now don't find cloud gaming appealing. It is appealing to a lot of people for a variety of reasons, but as someone who really cares about fidelity and responsiveness in my game, it's not for me right now. But the reality is, eventually, streaming will become just like native hardware. I believe that. That's one of those things where, and this is kind of a separate example, but look at how AI has progressed in 6 months and the stuff we're seeing. And even just thinking about growing up and using the internet on dial-up to what we have now, 4K, HDR streaming and the likes, right? So to me, streaming probably is inevitable. So it would make sense that Sony is preparing now. And like you said, they have been on the forefront in a lot of ways, specifically with Gaikai and that purchase. I think they kind of fumbled the ball a little bit in that they were ahead of the curve and then let Microsoft really lap them in this case. But it's one of those difficult aspects where so many companies have tried to be the leader in this, whether it's as far back as on live or Stadia taking another crack at it. It has to be a hybrid approach where you have hardware and streaming, because no one wants to do just streaming. And you also don't want to invest too much if the technology isn't quite right yet. So it makes sense that they want to continue to have this as an option. And like we mentioned last week with this potential handheld, it seems that cloud is something they're going to be investing more and more heavily in. But like I said, for me right now, and probably I would imagine at least 5 years or more, it's not going to be for me, and probably the most hardcore, which is why we still have hardware.
Yeah, I'll ask my questions later. I want to hear from Chris first. I don't want to go off on a diatribe here.
Well,
Chris, talk to me about this.
I think there's 2 angles to this. There's the angle of, streaming will eventually get really, really good. But I would argue that for us, for people who are like really, really like focused on, fidelity and latency and really clued into that stuff, I'd argue it's never going to be quite there. There's always going to be some just some issue, whether it be like a lapse in internet connection that causes a stutter that just wouldn't be the case for native. There's all this other stuff that goes into account. Even if the technology is there, sometimes that cuts out, and that's true. That's just as true today as it was back back in like the early 2000s. The issue is how many people are really hardcore about this stuff? Because we did that story recently on Sacred Symbols about how like people turn back their frame rates to 30 frames just for the fidelity of the image, you know, and like how important is it to the general population? And I would argue probably not that much, because I think about, you know, some of the people that I know who are like really, really into physical media or like things like, you know, hard copies of television shows on DVD or hard copies of, you know, whatever, movies, Blu-rays and stuff. And they will argue really intensely, and they're probably correct, about how streaming stuff on Netflix is like you're losing a lot. And I consider myself a pretty avid watcher of like media, but I don't care. Obviously, this is a different medium. Obviously, like there's interactivity to take into account, like latency. I get that. But I would imagine that there's a lot of people who are probably going to get into cloud gaming who probably won't notice any of the drawbacks that we specifically have immense gripes with. And that even goes back to like every time I go to somebody's house, I have to turn game mode on their TVs. Like it is never on when I go to somebody's apartment or house. I'm like, how do you play like this? You're playing on a delay and you don't even know it. And they're just like, oh no, that's how I grew up and whatever.
Yeah, you just think that's the way the game feels.
Yeah, exactly. And that's fascinating to me because it kind of indicates that a lot of the gripes that we have with cloud gaming probably aren't universal. We're probably very, very, in particular, very clued into this stuff. And so cloud is probably going to be huge whether or not the technology is there. The biggest issue, I think, isn't the technology. I would argue the technology is probably already where it needs to be. The issue is the infrastructure, the internet infrastructure in the places that it matters most. So the United States internet infrastructure is horrible. For example, like there's very, very few, there's like very specific places where we have like fiber or like very, very good connections. And that's a bigger issue than just technology. That's government, that's cable company, that's like the Comcast and the turf war that goes on between them, or like not the turf war, but the agreement between a lot of these big cable companies that they won't cross into our turf, you won't cross into theirs. And so I don't know. I think streaming will eventually be amazing, or like eventually be like really, really a good substitute. Definitely at the very least as an option, as an additive option for a hardware that's already there. But I would also, that is largely dependent on things that are outside of the control of any of these companies, really. Like that's way outside of the control of Xbox or PlayStation or even Google. How the infrastructure of the internet itself in this country or other countries as well exists in a way that's good enough to facilitate the vision for like this cloud future. Because right now it's not there. It's there for some things. You can play something like Yakuza and turn-based stuff. Totally fine. But in order to play like Call of Duty or Destiny or any of these games on cloud, there's going to have to be some serious upending of some way, way bigger problems than any of these companies are going to be able to fix on their own.
Yeah, like physics in some way.
Physics. This weird... I'm consistently staggered that the way the cable companies operate is even remotely legal. Like it blows my fucking mind that that's even just how we've been doing it for so long.
I like these cartels.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It to me, I look at it. First of all, I look at cloud gaming and again, it's old man yelling at clouds sort of situation. But pardon the pun, of course. But I look at it and I'm like, what purpose does this even serve? What purpose does it serve for me to be able to just instantaneously access a suite of games as opposed to just caching them or downloading them in some way? See, like, I think that's why like the layman in me, the technical layman in me doesn't understand why you couldn't make a situation. It might not work with multiplayer games, although maybe it would work with multiplayer games where you're just caching tons of information temporarily, locally. So the game, the map or the AI or whatever is loaded locally and removed from cache or whatever. And then in like, I don't know if that's possible, but that seems to be the only way you would possibly be able to overcome the speed of light in some way. Or you would have to build these, which I know Google has done, and I know others are doing, which is just building a massive shit ton of local server farms, basically. If you want to have like really good high fidelity, you got to have a fucking server farm in Virginia and one, near you in LA and all these other ones, because that's the only distance is like the big problem, And I know that the companies are already doing that and that we already ping these different servers, but you're going to have to multiply them by orders of magnitude. See, I just don't I don't understand why this is even relevant. And they're all chasing it, and they're all chasing it heavily, which means there's obviously something major I don't understand. But to me, the revolution comes if the revolution comes in anything, it comes in the form of a package like Game Pass. That to me seems to be the revolution that gives everyone access to lots of games. Then you bring them with you on your device. Why does your device have to read something far away with no information on it? I guess that's why I'm confused. Unless we're so fucking, on to the next thing that we can't possibly fathom even having a subscription of things, access to things, or just physical games or downloadable games. It's weird.
I do think it alleviates some issue. Like something that really bothered me in the PS3 generation and the Xbox 360 generation is the main reason I was on 360 primarily was the installation of discs and installation of games in general, like downloading, and it's just like, oh my God, it's taking so like, and especially if it's like a big game, like something like Red Dead Redemption 2, it's like, oh shit.
But is that one of the selling points? Because that can't be one of the bandwidth points, because you're using probably more bandwidth not doing that.
No, you're right. But for me, when I think of do I want to jump into, if Red Dead Redemption 2 is not installed on my hard drive, would I want to jump back into it? The answer is probably no, because I'm going to have to sit there and I'm going to have to download it, as opposed to, if I could just launch it, then, that's a way more convenient. It's the same amount of bandwidth, but the experience is completely different. Because the experience goes from that bandwidth being used over a period of time to download something natively on your hardware to eventually the point where you can play it natively and not have any problems, versus I'm feeling this. I'm feeling Red Dead Redemption 2 right now, and there's nothing in my way. So let me jump into it. And it's like a really big game, so it's not all of it's loaded at once. I understand some aspects of it, but I don't know, personally. And maybe we might be very, very drastically overestimating how many of us there are. But for me, I can't imagine a scenario where I'm going to prefer to play on cloud versus hardware. I can't fathom that future.
And I think there's an element too of beyond us. I think that, Chris, you bring up a good point about not having to wait to install a game, but I think that the way that Sony and other platforms view this is that right now, if they want to sell you a game or a subscription, there's a barrier to entry. You need to spend $500 or whatever the price of the console in order for them to sell you games. And for some people, that barrier to entry is going to be too high. And so what if a platform holder could sell you a game or sell you a subscription service like Game Pass, and you don't need a console? All you need is an app on your TV and a controller or a phone or something like that. There's no barrier. And then they can instantly start selling you their most profitable thing, which is games over consoles. And a lot of times, right now, maybe not anymore, but usually new consoles are sold at a loss. So what if you can just take that out of the equation, where they can just sell you a game?
Right.
So the software,
this makes sense. And of course, this was the promise of something like Stadia, I guess, in some way. I guess, and it's been the promise since On Live, really, of having this very idea of just instant access, no console. But it just feels like we were asking ourselves, who is it? Well, we're telling ourselves that we're a group in and of ourselves, but I actually think that the lack of success of all of these devices over time suggests that the group of people that are looking for easiest access to games, while large in maybe the developing world, is not really taking a bite out of the console picture in the West. And maybe we just have to accept that we need some sort of hardware. In other words, that goes back to the original question, is I get it fundamentally, but I also wonder what are we trying, what purpose are we trying to serve really with this? Can't we just, isn't the answer at some point you can't play games forever anywhere you want at all times? It's just strange.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, it's tricky because this will happen. It will happen at some point. It's happened with every single other thing. Why would it not happen with video games? Like, it's really just a matter of time and technology. Because I mean, you could. There were people arguing, it's like, oh, why would you want to stream music? Why wouldn't you rather just have the disc, or wouldn't you rather just have the record? And it's like, not really.
No, I definitely don't.
No, and you definitely don't. But there was a point in time where you probably would have thought that. You know, there was. I remember a specific time where I was like, nah, I'd rather have the CD than listen to it on MP3 or whatever. And then it got to the point where it's like, oh, well, no. This is obviously like way more convenient. I can watch Netflix, HBO Max on my phone, on my laptop, on my computer. And I guess that these are different things, right? These are passive mediums. But eventually there will be a technological advance in latency that makes it kind of indistinguishable. And so why not? Especially in the video game industry, where, again, like Dustin had a good point, where they sell consoles at a loss and they make money on the software. Imagine still being able to sell that software, or still being able to sell that hardware, because people love the hardware. People will always love the hardware. But imagine being able to reach people who either don't have the money or don't have the interest in the hardware, but still have interest in the software, but have always had that barrier up. Now you're making money off of software that doesn't need that loss. So it's interesting. It's an interesting. And I think that's what they're chasing. I think they're chasing, it's like, okay, we have to have this as ubiquitous as Spotify, as, Netflix, as HBO Max. I don't think it'll ever be that ubiquitous, because I just think the general, I mean, there are there's probably like 1 million 90-year-olds watching Netflix right now. I can guarantee you there's very, very few of them jumping onto Xbox Game Pass.
Yeah, sure enough.
It's a smaller window, but I do think it'll get there at some point.
I think you're right. I think the trends are inexorable. I just think there's something about games so important that makes it not happen, or it would have happened instantaneously a long time ago. And that, again, is just
right. But we're enthusiasts, is right. The thing. Like we live in this world. We live in the same world that like a cinephile would be like, wow, wouldn't it be like, look at this original, like the original print of The Evil Dead, or like the original movie where like they didn't update it at all. Isn't that great? It's like, this is the only version that's good. It's like, I feel that way sort of, but I also don't mind streaming the fucked up version. You know what I mean? Or like Star Wars, where it's like everybody talks about the original Star Wars and how like that's the original print and it wasn't fucked with or whatever.
Yeah, that's not even available, right?
No. So 90%, like probably 90+%, like I would wager like 98% of people who are like into Star Wars, they don't need that. They don't need that authentic, original, version or like the pure version. They just need access to it. And I think that's kind of what it is. It's just access.
They're Cy Snoodles fans. They like the that frog singing that song in Return of the Jedi.
You know what bothers me? You know what bothers me too is like as a Seinfeld person, I have Seinfeld on like pretty much every day because it's like my comfort show. I just have it on in the background. And on Netflix, it's widescreen.
Ooh,
the original, yeah, it's cropped.
Oh.
Now it's Seinfeld. It's not like The Simpsons where there's like a lot of gags on the outskirts, so it's not that distracting. But I would prefer to have like the original 4:3. Like I that would be my preferred way of viewing it. But at the same time, I'm still watching the widescreen because you know what, it's good enough.
That's so interesting.
I bet a lot of people are like that.
I haven't watched Seinfeld in streaming really, and but I knew it was in widescreen, and I always thought that they were forward thinking enough to film it in widescreen, and then it was cropped on TV. So it's disappointing too.
Yeah, I mean, you don't, like I said, it's not The Simpsons where it's like a cartoon and there's like a lot of stuff hidden on the edges. So it's not like you're losing much, but it's still, I don't know. To me, it's kind of annoying. But even to me, as somebody who cares and notices that stuff, like I'm more than fine, like watching a version that I think is inferior because it's I have access to it. So I don't know. It's a big conversation.
Yeah, it's interesting. We keep talking about the fidelity situation and my friend talking to me about his particular game and that anecdote. But it also doesn't take me, it's not hard for me to wrap my mind around why people would do it. Like, look how much prettier the picture is when I do it this way. It's just,
I have a hard time grasping that personally. Because it looks pretty when it's paused.
Right.
But the second it moves, it's nauseating and like Ratchet and Clank. I remember like playing, like trying to play on quality mode, and I was like, oh my god, why would I experience it this way? I really can't fathom it.
Well, we'll talk about that in a little while, actually. Frame rates. So many people wrote in about this, I couldn't help but ignore it. But let's do one more news item real quick, and then a correction, or not a correction, but an update from something we talked about earlier, and we'll see where that folds in. But for now, number 5, as is tradition on Sacred Symbols, it's time to discuss new games being added to PlayStation Plus. This time around, the games are for extra and premium tiers, the middle and highest tier of the new PlayStation Plus, with the third and lowest tier being essential. We're not talking about essential today. As of April 18th, however, PS Plus and extra premium subscribers can look forward to the following games. The biggest game of the bunch is 2021 indie release Kena, Bridge of Spirits. Wasn't it Kena or something like that we figured out? Or
I
something?
think it's Kena.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I don't care. The 3D action game from Ember Lab, that'll be available for both PS4 and PS5. However, the biggest tranche of games this month comes from none other than Microsoft's own developer Bethesda, or it's really publisher Bethesda, which offers up a slew of titles to the service. On PS4 and PS5 is 2020 FPS Doom Eternal from id Software, as well as PS4 ports of 4 old Doom games: the 1993 original, the 1994 sequel, the 1997 N64 iteration, and the critically acclaimed original Xbox game Doom 3 from 2004. Bethesda also offers up a duo of Wolfenstein games on PS4 from Machine Games, 2015's The Old Blood and 2017's The New Colossus, in addition to Tango Gameworks' 2014 survival horror game The Evil Within, and the so-called definitive edition of 2012's Dishonored, which came to PS4 in 2015. The 4 classic Doom games and Dishonored will only be available to premium members. Additional games for both tiers and across PS4 and PS5 include Ubisoft's 2021 sports game Riders Republic, the 2018 Wonder Boy revival Monster Boy and the Cursed Kingdom, 2022 fishing game Bassmaster Fishing, and 2020 indie murder mystery Paradise Killer. Things are rounded out for the month by Sumo Digital's second-party PS5 launch game Sackboy: A Big Adventure, which will also be available for PS4, and 2019 card game Slay the Spire for PS4. There's bad news, though, according to website Push Square, and that's that 32 games are leaving PlayStation Plus on May 16th, including some big ones, so you've been warned. These include 2018 Spider-Man, Metro 2033 Redux and its Redux sequel Last Light, Shenmue 3, and the PS4 port of the GameCube remake of Resident Evil, amongst others. This is a really, really strong month.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering what you guys make of it. So, Dustin, let's go to you first.
It is a strong month for extra, and particularly if you care about the remasters or remakes or ports on the premium category. But notice there are no PS1 games, no PSP games. They just nothing. They're just giving you some those PS4, like I said, the remasters, remakes, ports, whatever. So pretty annoying, I would say. Like I said, it's a good month, particularly for extra, I would say. And again, we say this every month, the extra tier is where it's at, especially if you are just getting into the ecosystem or you're not feeling the need to play new release games. This is the way to go, for sure. But yet again, just completely dropping the ball on their classic tier, in my opinion. And yeah, it's pretty annoying. I'm pretty curious, though, what you guys think about Spider-Man in particular leaving. This was kind of a big deal for some people that a Sony first-party game is leaving the service. A lot of people, this annoyed a lot of people in that normally, I guess if you compare it to Game Pass, there's stuff that cycles in and out of Game Pass, but never Xbox first-party stuff. It's always there. And so we're seeing that Sony is playing by, for many reasons, playing by a different rule set when it comes to their subscription service. But this is one that we didn't really know about until now.
Yeah, this is a shrewd, on his part, I guess, or on Jim's part, on Sony's part, it's like, this is a shrewd move in some way because Spider-Man 2 is coming out in September and they can sell it again. But I also feel like I would imagine Spider-Man and Miles Morales are both going to be on PlayStation Plus, essential, given away again in August or something like that. I feel like that's the move. That's my prediction, is that they're taking it away to bring it back and use it as a way to sell Spider-Man 2 later on. And I think that's a really powerful move to just say like, yeah, we'll give Spider-Man and Miles Morales for free and other games, of course, and extra or on essential. And yeah, they're taking away games on extra in their first party games, but I guess they never really promised those to begin with. I guess I want to give a shout out though. Stony Gamer wrote in and said, "Hey, because we're kind of all a little softer on it. Hey, a CDC, longtime listener, 2-month patron here now. Thank you, Stony Gamer. With the most recent announcement of PS Plus Extra and Premium games coming," and he says like Kenna, Doom Eternal, etc. "I really would like to point out how much value the service brings. Obviously, people want to compare it to Game Pass, but that aside, it's still a great deal for the price, in my opinion. Just want to shed some positive light on the service, even though it still has its issues with Premium, like having some PS1 classics having trophies and some not. Thank you for all the content over the years and more to come." They've slowly been patching a lot of the games that don't have trophies. Echochrome is the most recent one that got a trophy patch, which is an interesting one, PSP game. So I know that some of you like these, and Dustin had nice things to say about Extra, that being where it is. I know some people like these subscription models. To me, and that's such a tantalizing group of games, but it's like I don't play games like that. And I don't mean I love all of those games that they named, or pretty much all of them, the Bethesda ones specifically. Certainly not some of the others, but I don't need them like that. I almost get agita thinking about being part of the subscription service in some sense. It almost reinforces me not wanting to be there, because it's like, oh my God, it's like 7,000 Doom games. Am I just going to play fucking Doom forever? And then they're going to take them down. I'll just buy one and play it, and then I'll buy the next one and play it. I don't think anything about PlayStation Plus has reinforced, this new PlayStation Plus has reinforced my decision, which I think was very canny at the time, to say like, I'm not moving. And in fact, if they took away cloud saving or made that free, I would probably just unsubscribe completely at this point. It has no value. I don't play games online. It has no real value to me, but I understand some of you guys enjoy it. I don't want to talk down too much, but one of the things that everyone notices, Zach Dalton notices as well, is, hey boys, are we overblowing the whole Xbox versus PlayStation war because of the APK deal? Most people talk as if the two companies are diametrically opposed to working together due to this ongoing battle. However, most of the newly announced games coming to PS Plus and Extra and Premium this month are Bethesda titles. Thus, the two companies seem to still be fine with making deals despite everything that's being said in regards to everything that's come out during the ABK fight. This is true, but I would also imagine that this deal was in place for some time. And I would argue that this deal may have been in place as far back as several years. The reason I say that is because we have these deals for a year of Deathloop. That's up. A year of Ghostwire Tokyo. That's up. Around the time that Ghostwire Tokyo is up, now we get this flood of games. So it just seems like they're, in other words, organized around these year beats. And that's just an observation. I could be totally wrong about that. There's no doubt that on the ground, they have many relations with each other. Minecraft is still a huge game on PlayStation. A new Minecraft game is coming to PlayStation soon. Sony publishes MLB The Show on Xbox and now Switch. So I think in the trenches, and you'll learn this in any industry and certainly in games, like no one on the ground gives a flying fuck about the inter-corporate turmoil at all. They don't. You'll meet most developers, at least they'll say off the record at first party and second party studios, that they would wish they can make games for everything. So I think it's probably overblown from like they'll make money with each other, but I don't think that this deal you would have seen this if it wasn't in place already, because I do think that there is a lot of animosity between the two sides now. And I think now they're just going to, at least for the time being, going to work with each other only where they feel like they need to work with each other. And if the Activision deal goes through, which I think it will, that's going to be in a major way. But good observation. Lots of Bethesda stuff on there. Great deal for people that are interested in Doom, especially. I mean, you can get lost in those Doom games. That's a fucking dude. Doom 3 is so good. People talk about Doom Eternal, Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal, and they're awesome. But Doom 3 was awesome in its own right. And I loved that game. I fucking loved that game. And if you haven't played it out there, you should definitely check it out. One of original Xbox's very strongest games. And it's good that it finally got a PlayStation port as of last generation. All right, there's one other piece of news here. I don't know exactly how we want to handle this, Dustin, but we talked about Suicide Squad earlier in the show, so I guess you'll just staple this there, or you can just let it. I think it's probably best that you do that.
Or we could put in the timestamp that we have an update coming. I mean, it's
whatever you think is best. Whatever you think is best. Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League's official Twitter account, and I'm sure other social media feeds, released a statement, says Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League will now launch on 2/2/24. They are British, but it doesn't matter because it'll be February 2nd, regardless of how you read it. So that's clever and nice. I appreciate it. We have made the tough but necessary decision to take the time needed to work on getting the game to be the best quality experience for players. Thank you to our amazing community for the continued support, patience, and understanding. There is much more to share in the months ahead, and we look forward to seeing you in Metropolis next year. And there's a little piece of key art. You guys want to go check that out as well? Nice looking art. So there it is. We already talked about the game. I don't know where you're hearing this. Maybe where we're recording it. Maybe not. I don't know. I'll leave it up to Dustin. But I
feel good because I said we would hear news soon about the delay. And lo and behold, it happened.
Who knew it could be so soon?
Minutes later. So
who knew it could
that's
be
a long
soon?
Time, though. Don't you think? February? I know that they had talked about that it would be potentially delayed into next year. But wow, that is pretty. That's a lot of polishing and maybe some reworking.
Yeah, maybe. I think part of it is like get it to a sheen and avoid coming out around really bad games that are hard to compete with, games that you don't want to fuck around with, you know?
Yeah.
You definitely don't want to come out in September, right? So like you definitely don't want to come out in November. So you're kind of running out of space. If you want to have like meaningful work done on the game, you're getting into a point, you're going to launch around Spider-Man, Starfield, Call of Duty. No, I think that you got to get that game out of here. And so you go stake your claim in February and give everyone enough time. They have money. They can eat it. But I think this might be a sunk cost fallacy because I don't know that. I honestly do not. I will be very curious if what they are able to do to this game changes the thermometer in any way, shape, or form. I think it'll be just as cool as it is now. I just don't know what you can do in that little amount of time. So let's say May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December, January. It's like 9 months. You're going to have to go gold probably in 7.5 months. I don't know what you do in that amount of time. I mean, you can get everything really good as it exists now. And I do think the best move is to just lean into it and maybe reposition the way you communicate this information, the way the UI reads. You'll probably have a totally different read on all the game statistics and the menus. You would imagine that shit's going to all be reworked. But they're not going to be able to neuter the point of the game. Right. There's just no way they can do that. That would have to just scrap the game.
If they just make it polished, I think, like polished to an unreasonably good degree.
Yeah.
Which I think they have enough time to do.
Definitely.
I think that'll be fine. Hopefully avoid some frame rate barriers.
Oh yeah, we're going to talk about that right now.
Other titles might be faced with.
We're going to talk about that presently. Yeah, I think they're in a good shape to just lean into it and hope for the best. And right, like you said, make it as shiny as possible. Just make it the best version of itself that it can possibly be. I think that's very wise. And I still am of the mind that it's going to do totally fine whether it came out in May or whether it came out later. I don't know that it's going to do 10 million copies. And I do know that by the time this game comes out, Chris, it'll have been 9 years.
Yeah.
Since Rocksteady released the game. 9 years.
I'll say this too. If this game comes out and it's broken, oh man.
Oh yeah. I can't imagine. I can't imagine that.
That's bad. That's bad.
I don't think so. I just don't. It's like Starfield energy for me where they just know they can't do that. You know, they just know they can't do that. But speaking of, we keep bringing it up. It's a prelude. Let's get to listener inquiries now. It's time to end Sacred Symbols as we always do with 6 questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, and ideas from the audience that you guys write in on Patreon. I post a thread in the news feed on Patreon every week. You put your inquiries in there. I delete the news feed or the news item when I'm done, and then we do it all again the next week. So write in at your leisure. Pithy, well-written comments are appreciated, and a lot of you wrote in about this. And I was not going to talk about it because I didn't think it was really germane to our show, but I would argue 12 to 15 of you wrote in about this out of 150 inquiries. So that would be kind of insane for me to ignore it. So let's use Adam Razek's inquiry. He says, hello, gentlemen. With the news that Redfall will only be 30 frames at launch on Xbox consoles, do you have concerns that any upcoming PlayStation Studios games will start launching without performance modes? Thanks. And I wish Chris the very best in his upcoming boxing match. Thank you, Adam, for writing in. So I was talking a little bit about this on Discord with our audience, and I was saying that it's my conversion is to 60 frames was exposure therapy. When you're on PlayStation 3 and PlayStation 4 to a degree, certainly PlayStation 4 base, and you're seeing 30 frames over and over again, your eyes, and it's not even literally your eyes, like your whole concept of games, you understand it through that prism. And when you start seeing it differentiated, it comes off as faster, but you start kind of calling those fast games or games that feel faster, but you're still stuck in a 30 frames environment. And so your mind doesn't get to kind of segue over to the new reality. For me, PlayStation 5 has made it so that I'm playing game after game after game after game after game after game after game at 60 frames a second. And so my entire paradigm has shifted. And now I see it. And as I discussed, Evil West a few months ago was the game that really jarred me for the first time, where I said aloud, this looks like fucking shit when I was playing it, not realizing it was in 30 frames. And then I switched and I was like, oh, that was the shift, like the come to Jesus moment. I think this matters because I would beclown any PlayStation 5 first party game that ever dares to come to PlayStation 5 under 60 frames a second, 60 frames a second. And that is the baseline expectation. And I don't think Sony should have any worries, because we have games like Ratchet and Clank, which is a pretty graphically impressive and intensive game running at 60 frames, Horizon Forbidden West running at 60 frames, and God of War Ragnarok running at 60 frames. So I don't see why anything is not going to run at 60 frames. And if you gave me one of those games at 30 frames a second, I'd be really astounded. Not because it's necessarily wrong, but because my entire understanding of frame rate has shifted as I've gotten more repeated exposure to 60 frames. So you don't want to go backwards. This is kind of the future that 60 frames purists always wanted, which was for 30 frames people, or the agnostic amongst us, to be like, don't you understand? Don't you see? It's like Mallrats with the fucking, with the picture of the boat, and they can't, the kid can't see the boat or whatever, and he calls it a schooner and all that. And those 90s images, I can never see those either. I could never see them either. But I imagine if you put them in front of me time and time again and started pointing out to me, like, this is where it is, this is it, eventually my eyes would see it. And so I think that anyone making excuses for 30 frames Redfall is really cooking with a peculiar gas, because it's just, we're supposed to be far beyond this now. This isn't supposed to be a problem. The interstitial console, the PS5 Pro, is what will hopefully get us at higher resolutions running at 60 frames, or 120 frames running at something like 1080 or even 1440. But this is insane, and people seem to be up in arms about it, to the point where we got a ton of write-ins on us on Sacred Symbols and PlayStation podcast. So let's talk about it. Chris, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I'm playing this on PC. that's what I think. I'm with you in the sense that I cannot go back to 30. I cannot do it. I simply can't. From the second this, and I was fine with it for a while, until I think the Master Chief Collection came out, and I was playing all the games that I used to love at 60 frames. I'm like, oh well, no. No way. I'm going back. I'm going back at this point. And what blows my mind about this 30 frames per second thing with recent Xbox first party or upcoming Xbox first party is that Redfall and Starfield, I mean, you could argue if they fit into this category or not, but I would argue they do. They're first person shooters.
Right.
And they're 30 frames.
Redfall especially is a first person shooter on categorically.
Redfall especially. But to me, it's like, dude, of all the genres that needs 60 frames per second the most, like, this is the one. Like, these are the games that require, I would argue, more than any other game, 60 frames. Maybe fighting games, you could make a case as well. But for me, like, I can't imagine playing a first person shooter at 30 frames per second on a modern machine. I can't imagine that. And I just don't understand what's going on, because I mean, and this isn't impugning the state of the game, by the way. Like, I'm sure Starfield's probably going to be great. I have a lot of faith in Redfall, actually. Like, even though I'm not like super into the premise, Arcane is just great in general. So I think the game's going to be great. I think what's there is going to be awesome. But it's embarrassing. You know, it's embarrassing to see a first party title release at a 30 frames per second standard. And no one's saying that there can't be like a compromise there, where it's like, okay, you have a 60 frames per second mode, but the resolution's like 1440, right? Like, that's beyond acceptable to me.
Me too.
Like, because I'll make that trade-off easy. But to not even have the option indicates that this game's just not ready. And to me, if the game isn't ready, don't put it out. It's really that simple. Like, I will sacrifice as much resolution as I possibly can to get to that solid 60 frames mark. And so many games have been doing that lately with seemingly no real issue. And maybe there's something about Redfall that I'm not catching. Maybe there's something there that obviously I haven't played it. I have no hands-on time with it. I don't know what the game is at its core. But I have a hard time believing that whatever Redfall is so much of a jump forward that it necessitates the sacrifice of 60 frames or a specific downgrade to 30 frames just to get it running. Because it just doesn't look that intense.
No, not at all.
It's not. With Starfield, I actually understand it a lot more. Because Starfield's you're flying in space. There's like a million planets. Like that to me at least makes some semblance of sense. But Redfall to me, like that should easily be a 60 frames per second. Like I don't see how it can't be.
Yeah.
And so my opinion is just, dude, delay this thing. Delay it at least until you get 60 frames. Like I bet the game's in great shape, but like get that 60 frames. Although, again, this kind of ties into our conversation a little bit earlier. How many of us really give a shit?
Right.
If so many people like turn their 60 frames per second back down to quality mode, like how much, like maybe they've done the math and they're like, you know what? Most people really don't care. And as long as the game's good, people are going to play it. They're going to like it and they're going to look past it. And then we'll have that 60 frames per second patch in the future, and then those players will play it and they'll enjoy it as well, or whatever. Maybe that's a possibility that they've researched this and maybe they know better than us. But all I know is when I look over at PlayStation, those games are running at 60 frames. And so to me, it's like you've just got to match that. And I understand that these are different games, the different levels of interactability. There's, this is Starfield's an RPG. Arcane is arguably probably has some immersive sim elements. I get it. But I don't know. Maybe we are reaching that point, though, because like we said with Hogwarts Legacy and that game starting to chug, maybe, I don't know. Is it possible that we're reaching like a point with the PS5 and Xbox Series X already that like the next few games that we get might have this problem?
Maybe. I mean, these are the few things I wanted to bring up here in this conversation because we're having a great talk here and we'll get to Dustin about it. Is that it's important, although our letter didn't indicate that we use from Adam that, at launch it will be at 30 frames, that Arcane has said that they will patch it post-release for 60 frames. So they hope to get it there, at least on Series X. I doubt that they're ever going to get it there on Series S. I don't know if that was ever the expectation. And of course, like you said, this will be on 60 frames on PC day one, which is where people
hopefully.
Hopefully.
Who knows?
Well, people. So this was one of the things I was going to say was I was a little confused about the state of games, media, and journalism because I was like, didn't you all just go and play the game? So if it's running on PC, you have to ask questions actively about the console version. But I was told by certain people that people did ask these questions and there was a lot of obfuscation. And if that's true, that's obviously unappreciated because that's intentional. You knew that the game wasn't going to run or wasn't running at 60 frames probably internally, or you were having problems making it run at that frame rate stably. And so I was a little confused why, because I've been pretty high on Redfall actually. And people were saying this on our Discord that like, I've always been like, I think this game looks kind of cool. I love vampires. I think the game looks fun and kinetic. I don't think it looks like the most beautiful thing I've ever seen or whatever, but I've always thought it looked promising. But it seems like the arrow is pointing down into the dirt for this game. Not only because of this frame rate thing, but actually because of what preceded it. And I wanted to write this down to make sure, which was that IGN First, the IGN kind of reveal series that has been going on for many years since I was there even. It's been a long running thing run by my friend Ryan McCaffrey. He does a great job. Put up a bunch of gameplay and people were like, this looks like a lot of people, I thought it looked fun, but a lot of people were like, this looks like shit. And that was running at 60 frames a second. That was a PC build. And then this news came out. So it just doesn't seem good. And I was clicking away to look. The game comes out May 2nd. So we're talking about delaying. They would have to delay in the gold window, basically.
Yeah.
They haven't announced that the game's gone gold yet, but they're certainly there and in that space. So they might want to push away. I just don't know. Dustin, I'm very curious to get you involved in this and see what you think about this wild inevitability. Because the one thing I wanted to add as I kick it over to you is something I think you'll probably bring up or know, which is that it's Digital Foundry, I think, that wrote some sort of editorial saying 30 frames games are coming back. Like that there has to, this level of fidelity and expectation needs to be tempered with what these consoles can actually do. And so Chris might be right that this might be the first introduction of that.
That's certainly possible. And I believe the Digital Foundry's argument is that the reason why we had so many 60 FPS standard games so far this generation is because of this really long extended cross-gen period where you have a game like God of War Ragnarok that is basically a PS4 game that they made look real nice and then a higher frame rate on PlayStation 5. Same with Horizon. As great as it looks, that's also a PS4 game that they just made look better on PS5. So a lot of their argument is as we get into current gen only territory, developers may want to maximize the hardware in a way that puts fidelity over performance, which is certainly possible because we already saw that with Plague Tale kind of doing their 30 FPS and maybe I think they have 120 hertz mode that does 40 frames or something like that. So we have seen instances of that, but I would argue that that isn't necessarily going to be the case because I think that if developers have been smart and observing how consumers are reacting to these consoles and for the software on it, that they're seeing that 60 FPS should be an important initiative for current gen only games. And there's two really good examples of that in Dead Space Remake being a PS5, Series X, whatever game only and running at 60 FPS, and Final Fantasy 16, which is going to be it already confirmed has a performance mode and is only on current gen. So it comes down to how developers want to decide how to maximize the hardware resources before them. In the case of Redfall, and this isn't an excuse, but it's me just looking at the situation, trying to glean why this is the case. My best guess is that they are running into a CPU limitation, particularly with multiplayer. So in that case, it doesn't matter if they lower the resolution. If their CPU, if they're running into a bottleneck there, then there's other things that they need to optimize. That would make sense to me in that if this game is kind of the more immersive sim, only with multiple players involved, then there is going to be a lot of world interactivity, which would hit the CPU pretty heavily. But it sounds like they, or at least what they're saying is that they have a path to optimize the game to get to that point. But I think it's worth stating that it is, and I put together the clip today for Defining Duke, and I think Maddie really hit this home in that now the expectations are different, and this is Xbox's first big game release under that Bethesda banner. Obviously, we had Hi-Fi Rush, but this is, separate. That was kind of an unexpected smaller game. And so to come out the gate and say, hey, this is our premier console. This is one of our premier first party titles. And oh, sorry, if you want it at 60 FPS, you're going to have to wait. That's unfortunate. And so is it possible that Sony first party could follow suit? Certainly. But I think that there are some, like I mentioned earlier, some particular things with this release that are holding them back. And by the way, I love Arcane. I am a huge Arcane fan. I will play their games anywhere. I don't care if they say their next game is on Game Boy. I'm going to play it because this is how
this team specifically made Prey, as far as I understand. This is the Prey team.
Yeah. So I'm always going to check out their stuff. So it has nothing to do with like a PlayStation versus Xbox scenario here, but their engine has always been kind of janky, whether it's Dishonored with its really bad input lag, Dishonored 2 particularly on when that came out, the really bad input lag, and also Prey having bad input lag. And then Deathloop wasn't too bad, but now you're adding multiplayer into the mix. So I'm not surprised that this is happening. They're not necessarily known to be like this technically competent studio with a really well-optimized engine, even on PC. So it is possible that this could happen to Sony. But to conclude, back to my original point, is that my best hope is that this 2-year period of cross-gen has sent a clear message to developers saying, shift your focus. We don't need the highest fidelity, highest resolution games. We want games that feel better to play. And frame rate is a huge part of that.
Yeah, you're right. I think the reasons to hopefully, you're talking about the Void engine. Redfall is built on Unreal, as far as I know. So
really,
so that's
even worse.
That's what I was going to say. That, and it's Unreal 4, so that's like 4.x. So that's what I'm thinking as well, is that actually underlines why there's some sort of problem here. And I agree with you. I think friend of the show Jez Corden wrote a piece that I was reading a little bit of earlier today, where it's just Redfall. It's not Redfall that seems to be the problem for people. It's that Xbox seems to be incapable of doing anything meaningful at all. And it's frustrating. And I mean, from a games perspective. And I think it's becoming frustrating for that group of people. Like, they're becoming very disenchanted. And because people are like, what, maybe that indicates Spider-Man will be this. I'm like, dude, Spider-Man 2 is not going to be anything less than 60. I mean, they'll have a 30 frames high fidelity or a high resolution mode, but Spider-Man 2 is running 60 frames a second. I mean, we all know that they're never going to do that. And the one thing I wanted to underline here is that Sony's silence has been so obnoxious for the last couple of years. We are scratching on our goddamn faces for news. We're going crazy in padded rooms for anything. But you know what the massive advantages of them being quiet is? They get to watch everyone else make all of these mistakes. And then they're just like, oh, we definitely can't do that. I mean, at this point, they're looking at it and saying, I mean, we cannot release a 30 frames first party game under any circumstances. I don't think that was ever a danger of happening, but I think that this underlines that for them. You know, I think that all of these different situations are underlining all of these circumstances, regardless of what they are just, that's the beauty of the silence. That's frustrating as a pundit and someone who wants to talk about these things, but they're probably happy as pigs in shit because their console is selling through the roof. The games are selling extraordinarily well. They haven't said a goddamn word about anything. They have this certainly Emmy bait, The Last of Us HBO show, more things on the way. And they're just watching Microsoft walk in the rakes with like what matters most, which are the games. And so because I think that the troubling thing about this is what I've been trying to communicate, or one of the things I try to communicate about Game Pass and some of my reservations about the subscription models, which is people are like, well, it's free on Game Pass. And I'm like, well, it's not free. And you excusing it as a Game Pass game is the exact problem. Is it a game that has value and worth, or isn't it? And the constant excuse making because of the business model is why inferior games are released. Because Sony could never have gotten away with releasing a series of subpar games without really coming under major scrutiny about what it does best. In fact, one of the only reasons anyone plays on PlayStation, which is the quality of the games. Certainly no one's playing on PlayStation because PlayStation Store knocks your fucking socks off. Certainly no one's playing on PlayStation because PSN is the superior online service. I mean, so at some point you have to deliver those things. And I just think that's the problem with Redfall. I think Redfall looks cool. And I think the problem is though that Redfall is a first person shooter. I think 30 or 40 frames of a game, a stealth action game, is different than 30 or 40 frames in a highly kinetic first person shooter. I mean, I watched that gameplay from IGN first. It's a fast game, you know?
Yeah. Even I would argue even Starfield being a first person shooter is still a little bit less that being 30 frames is far less egregious, given that it's like more of kind of an RPG, and that's probably like an emphasis placed on exploration and conversation.
I mean, there's no conversation about that now, right? Like there can be no way that game is running at 60 frames on Xbox Series X. Starfield.
No, if Redfall can't, it just seems Starfield seems to me a lot more like there's a lot more going on.
Yeah. So they're going to encounter this problem again.
Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
It's I don't know, man. It's bizarre. I wonder how much of this is. I wonder how much of this is the inevitable kind of Digital Foundry, like 30 frames per second is coming back, and I wonder how much of it has to do with the fact that the Series S is in play, and needs to kind of run these things as well.
Yeah, which was always going to be that was always a harbinger of things to come. Yeah,
it's like Baldur's Gate. remember when we talked about that it's releasing only on PlayStation? It was revealed the reason that's the case has nothing to do with any kind of deal with Sony. It's because they couldn't get co-op working on the Series S. And so they said, sorry, we're going to have to do the Xbox version later. Which is
certainly
crazy.
They're going to have to sever it off at some point, right? I mean,
yeah, I would imagine.
But they had this like universalist promise of everything, right? So it's going to be difficult.
Well, I mean, Sony believed in generations.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Yeah,
like these things there's always going to be some broken promise. I don't know. I personally, I think Redfall looks kind of neat. I don't know really much. I did see that IGN gameplay though, and I do feel like, you know what it reminded me of? It reminded me a little bit of the Polygon Doom.
Oh yeah.
It wasn't that bad, but it was like
the guy wasn't aiming down the sights a lot, which was weird.
If you're gonna showcase a shooter, like at least have a guy who's good at shooters play it, you know? Like I don't know what the protocol is necessarily, but it didn't look that. And it's frustrating when you see a game being played and you could tell, like, I bet if I played this, it would look awesome. And they're not doing any.
Totally. No, I in some way I sympathize because I used to capture gameplay all the time when I was in media at IGN, and I've thought of times specifically at Tokyo Game Show where like you just can't read the menus, I can't invert the controls, I'm the only person there. Castlevania Lords of Shadow 2, I think, was one of them that I played uninverted, and I just could not play it, and people were making fun of it. But that was kind of a more guerrilla style. You got to go to the show floor, get your footage, do the best you can. People understand, they're going to bust balls, whatever. But that was what's more confusing about the Polygon situation, and specifically this situation with IGN First, is that you would think you would deploy your very best player, or since you're working exclusively with the developer and they're probably vetting your footage, if they looked at it and said like, would you, which I had happen to me too, and I didn't mind. It was like, would you mind if we played the game and showed
I would
it
ask
off?
Developers to do that.
Yeah, exactly. It's like
days,
I think that's actually ideal. Frankly, is for you to preview. You should preview your game. I don't really want to preview your game because I hate previews. That's a whole other thing. But it's like, just show me the game. I know it's unfinished. It should be seen in the best possible light, I think, to be fairest before it is deployed to all. And so, I don't think that gameplay did it any service. And I have the YouTube plugin for dislikes on my browser, and it's awful over there. It's probably like 20-1 or something.
Ooh.
And like someone had taken a screenshot where it was like 1,000 to 30,000 or something like that. I'll have to look it up real quick. But it's like, damn, I didn't really realize it was that bad. Because I was looking at it and I'm like, the guy isn't very good at it. Neither am I. I'm not very good at games either. And I think it looks fun. So I don't know. I feel like I'm in fucking La La Land or something.
Well, it's an FPS. So like generally you kind of want to be a little bit showy if you're going to show off an FPS, because like that's like the whole experience is high octane kind of like action. And you almost kind of have to play stylistically if you're trying to show off what's cool about a first person shooter, because like, we've seen the general kind of cutout frame of a first-person shooter for decades now. You know, like gun on the screen shooting at enemies by itself isn't all that interesting. What matters is what else you can do. And the guy just wasn't doing much else.
Yeah, I'm looking at it now. It's 1.7 thousand thumbs up, 22,000 thumbs down is what it is.
Crazy.
But I'm looking at it, I'm like, I think this looks fucking cool. But I could see, I mean, it's there's nothing, it's pretty generic looking. I don't play a lot of online games, obviously, so things appeal to me when I really clue into them, you know?
Yeah, I think the thing with us is, though, that like we're a little bit more clued in. So where we can see like, oh, this looks cool. It's just this guy who's kind of like not amazing. Like the general public looks at it and they're like, this game looks like shit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I do. Yeah, you're right. I do love the red hue
of
the whole thing. It's cool.
Yeah.
Really cool aesthetic.
Anyway.
All right. Redfall, RIP in peace. I think you're going to be fine. We'll see. It's just a Game Pass game. Jonas Sparks wrote in and said, hey, gents, I was wondering what you consider the most relaxing game you've ever played. For me, and this will sound crazy, it's Power Wash Simulator. That doesn't sound so crazy to me. It was just a nice, relaxing game that was also oddly satisfying, and I don't think I've ever had a game experience like that. What are your thoughts? I got to pick that game up now that it's on PlayStation. It's made by the guys that made Future Lab, the guys that made the Velocity games on Vita, and those games are so good. Oh my god, those games are so good. Those guys were really nice from Britain. Met them a few times when I was at IGN. So that sounds like a nice, relaxing experience. Dustin, what game speaks relaxation to you?
So I have two answers. I feel relaxed through building stuff. Like for me, thinking it's like Roller Coaster Tycoon or a city builder game, City Skylines on a PC. You're kind of relaxed. Maybe you've got hot tea or hot coffee and you're just building out your theme park. I don't know. There's something really satisfying about that. My other answer, of course, is going to have to be Animal Crossing. Particularly, the last one came out at such a weird time. It came out right when the lockdown started. And it was at the time where we didn't know how extensive or how bad or how crazy things were going to get with COVID. And then it was nice that you had this little world that you could control and make your own little island and decorate and have these cute little animal friends. And so at the time, it was this oasis away from this totally crazy world. So Animal Crossing. Now, the game has absolutely no value to me and that I never want to go back and play it. I've kind of gotten all my use out of it. But so yeah, building games, Animal Crossing. I think I mentioned Stardew Valley when we talked about cozy games, and that kind of fits in that area as well.
Yeah, I think Ramon's playing Stardew Valley now. I got him to
nice.
Check that out. I thought he might like that on Switch. Chris, what game speaks relaxing to you?
I don't know if I don't play games to relax, really, which is kind of something that I hadn't quite thought about. There are games that I find relaxing purely because of my familiarity with them. You know what I mean? Like, but they're not relaxing games at all. Like Left 4 Dead is like relaxing to me because I'm so familiar with every single map and every single weapon and every single aspect of that game that I can just kind of shut my brain off and just sort of chill while I play it. But it's not a relaxing game. I've never understood like the Animal Crossings or the Harvest Moons or those types of experiences, because to me it's like trying to meditate at a theme park. It's like I didn't come here for this.
It's deep.
Like I relax when I go to sleep. You know, when my brain's not doing anything. But I guess like purely from a standpoint of my mind is at ease, I would say like maybe like Tetris. Like Tetris Effect or something. Like that's a game that I guess is the closest, but even that's not real. Like Tetris is stressful, like a lot of the time. So I don't know if we kind of ran into this problem into one of the more, maybe not one of the more recent episodes. It might have been like a couple months ago now, but like when we had that whole thing, like what's a cozy game? And I didn't have an answer because I don't view video games through that lens.
Yeah, I can understand that. It's funny you bring up some things that I was going to talk about, which was that the same sort of thing. I don't know that I ever play games for that either, like for relaxation. I think I get most zen-like or in the when a game demands infinite amounts of your energy and attention, then I become really immersed in them. And I guess that would be like a point of turning my brain off where I forget things are happening.
Yeah.
You know, like when you go to a movie, I always loved thinking about this. I was having having a bad day or something's wrong in my life, and I go to a movie and you just forget about it. And then you remember it. And it's like, oh, but you forgot about it. Right.
It's technically relaxing, but in the sense that you're taking a break from the things that stress you out, but it's not literally. I think about like maybe like Shadow of the Colossus too, like one of those like kind of zen-like games where a lot of it is kind of traversing through empty. And I mean, weirdly enough, Resident Evil 4 I found like we're strangely relaxing as well. Like there's something about like the atmosphere being very, very good,
popping melons,
really immersive. But it's I don't know, it's a paradox to me. I don't think I have a relaxing game that I play.
Yeah, I think the game that I just turn off the most when I play because it demands so much of my time that I basically am the game is Civilization. Where I'm just in it. When I play Civilization, I'm just in it. You can't I can't do anything else when I'm playing Civilization. It requires too much attention and thinking for me to just, and I'm not very good at it. So I need to like really pay attention to it. It's usually like a travesty in slow motion, you know, as my Civilization comes to, but that's kind of the closest I was thinking as well. But I'm with you that I don't know that I'm really going for, I like to, when I'm relaxing, I'm not doing anything or
Right.
I'm passively engaging in something. Yeah. I can't be playing a game and be relaxed. Doesn't really compute.
Yeah.
All right. Brian Hunter wrote in and said, "Salutations, distinguished gentlemen of charm and allure. Recently, I came across a showcase where generated AI art was being converted into 3D assets in a few simple steps. This got me thinking about how much longer developers will rely on mostly handcrafted aspects in games. Additionally, is there an upside to this development? Game worlds can feature more intricate details than ever before, freeing up developers to focus on more important aspects such as storytelling and combat, while AI models procedurally generation handle the more menial parts of development. Or will developers just use these technologies to downsize, lowering the cost of development as well as dampening the creativity that game development once had?" Thoughts? I wanted to bring this up because I've been listening to a lot of stuff recently, Lex Friedman and other stuff, where the AI revolution we're currently within is like actually scaring people that know things about technology and science. Like we're in a moment right now, a suspended moment right now as we speak, where there are smart people being like, I don't think you understand what you're doing already with this stuff. Like I don't think you understand the Pandora's box you've already unlocked, and the ethical questions that need to be confronted about consciousness and the joblessness you're about to manufacture and
exactly,
and the inability to, like, he's talking about, you know, well, they can focus on art so people can focus on the more important parts of games. Like, first of all, I don't think storytelling or combat are more important than art. I think it's all part of it. But you don't think an AI can create perfect art, perfect combat? Feed it a bunch of games and let it learn how those games work and what are good about it. They'll make the perfect feeling game. Like that will become a science. And so nothing's immune. And
no.
We touched on this, Chris, I know a while ago, because we were talking about this idea of, I think we're a few years away from a selling point of your game being like no AI assistance in, like, unassisted by AI in development or whatever, something in the credits where there's nothing taken, no sort of replicative or additive function of AI that could be put into game development. Because I think a lot of that stuff is going to find its way in inevitably, and it's going to subsume everything. And I'm so interested in what you guys might think about this, because these guys, like, I'm not a very smart person with science and math. Everyone knows that, but I like to listen to it and humanize it and get a better idea of it. And it's just so interesting to listen to these guys being like, this is really serious. Like Chat GPT or whatever that thing is. Like the guy I was listening to was like, that's really serious. Like it's answering questions like it has a consciousness. Does it have a consciousness? How do you know? Right? And he was bringing up all these weird ass examples of it not doing the right thing or not doing the ethical thing, and why didn't it do this, and we don't really know why, and all the different options it could have done. It was specifically about a dog being sick. I don't know if you guys have heard anything about this. Apparently the story is like something like it's asked about a sick dog and what it should do, and it's told that the dog has this thing, and so it tells the person that the dog, it's something like that tells the dog it has nothing to worry about because it can't get sick from this disease. But in fact, like it was more serious than that. And it was just wrong. But it's like, why did it answer that way when it was, I'm butchering a little bit, but why did it answer it like that when it knows that that's not the answer? And it's just strange. And we're just getting there. Chris, you and I were just talking about, and we were just talking about on the show, just the very art engines that we were messing around with couldn't do faces, couldn't do anything right. And now they're making photorealistic images that people don't know if they're real or not.
Yeah.
I just think that we have to open our eyes to what's going on with this. Anyway, what are your thoughts here?
I don't know, man. It's scary. I think to me, to me, like, let me back up a little bit. The as far as like its assist, I do think there's like a level of assistance where it's okay, where it's like, okay, yeah, like, have it handle certain things like flavor text or whatever, you know, like but what are they? Barks,
yeah,
I think are what they're called.
Yeah,
like I get it, right? I understand, but at the rate that this is accelerating, we're not even really going to be in that acceptable period for very long. Because I think even maybe like 6 or 7 months ago, like just before I started training, AI art was like very, very rudimentary and very, very simple. I remember like there were these amazing like kind of I can't like Cookie Monster on Seinfeld, and it was just kind of like you could type it in and it would be like this like the general colors and the general shapes, but it didn't quite get the fine details. And now you have like just 7 months later, you have entirely believable photographs of Trump being arrested. And like I remember seeing them, I was like, and I looked at him, I was like, did this happen? Because it looks convincing.
Dude, there's a picture of Trump coming. I told you guys a picture of Trump coming out of the Stargate that looks like it really happened. It's like I was like, this is amazing.
You know the Pope in the Pope in the big jacket.
Yeah,
like it's and that's only in a few months. So in a few years, it's going to be scary. And I've had this. I've been bringing this up on Sacred Symbols for years, by the way. But we're eventually going to reach a point where so many jobs are replaceable by machines that our unemployment rate is going to be unethically high to continue doing business the way that we've been doing business. And I think this is the first wave right now of like, we're going to have some serious, like fundamental ethical questions about how we continue on from here in, I would argue, like no less than 3 years. Because this is big. This is a big deal. The second an AI can do your accounting for you, the second an AI can do your writing for you, the second an AI can put together essays and all this other shit, like outside of basic grunt work, and how long before that's just a robot? You know what I mean? Like it's getting crazy, man. And I know that's not the question that this guy asked, but it's like this is a big problem.
Yeah, it's a big topic. For sure. It's a pull from any number of threads. I agree. It is scary. It's just strange. It feels, and Dustin, will go to you. It feels like many things today where it's just calamities in motion that no one seems to care about. The things that are so demonstrably fucked up. You know, I'm watching Ken Burns' Vietnam right now. I'm on episode 7 or episode 8. I only got halfway through it when it came out in 2017. And I'm like, man, you just move a few people around, a few names around, and this is literally what's happening today, like in war and all of these different things, like just the quotes and the moments and just the mistakes. It's like, wow, no one gives a fuck about any of these big monumental things, these mistakes or these oncoming trains that are coming. And I feel like people's eyes are not open enough to the real risk of it. And I think it's important that we trust the smart people around us to tell us, to be a gauge as to when we should be worried, and they seem to be sounding the klaxon. What do you think?
Yeah, I think absolutely that whole parts of games will be made by AI. The funny thing about some of this AI stuff is that people that are kind of on the outside or not experiencing it or experimenting with it, I don't think fully understand sometimes about what's possible. You can see the result, and that's cool, but you can just sign up and go on ChatGPT and start experimenting and see what you can do, and then you will realize that we are truly fucked. For example, I was messing with a prompt where you can set all these parameters for ChatGPT where you wanted to it'll read your prompt or something you write and then spit out 1,000-word or even more. You can set whatever you want and tell it to write at a collegiate level or something, or you could tell it to write a short story. And so I was messing with this, and I'll do stupid prompts. For example, this is an actual prompt I did. I should see if I can find it, where I had it spit out a short story about how Phil Spencer and Jim Ryan got in a fight backstage at E3. And when they did, they accidentally, their lips touched. And at this moment, a spark was born. And then they went to Applebee's. And it spit out a giant story about this short little prompt that I wrote. It just did it very convincingly. And just imagine if it's not some fucking idiot like me putting in a dumb prompt on and being even more specific about different story plot points, what this thing's going to be able to do. And it's not just from a writing perspective. And I know you guys have touched on some of this stuff, but have you guys seen these videos coming out of, I think the first really popular one was Harry Potter Balenciaga.
Oh, yeah.
What is that?
They have all the Harry Potter characters and they're dressed in the Balenciaga fashion stuff. And now there's all of these different versions of that. Like there's Avengers, Balenciaga, and stuff like that. When I saw that, I thought, this has gotten so good so fast that eventually you will be able to remake a movie with AI or say, hey, here's Lord of the Rings. Make it in the style of Studio Ghibli. Spit it out. Yeah. I'm fully convinced you'll just be able to do that. This is what will happen. Maybe not on a consumer level, but at a commercial level, I fully think that eventually we're going to get to that point, just based on how much progress has been made in such a short amount of time. And so all of this is a roundabout way of me saying, yes, absolutely. The era of AI generated games is coming along with everything else.
Yeah, fair enough. Very well said. Thank you for writing in, Brian. Robert Schultz wrote in and said, hey, gents, wondering if you guys could dig in on the economics of bringing Call of Duty to PS Plus. It's been tossed around as a potential opportunity, but I don't think it's been fully unpacked on the show. From my perspective, any deals start with offsetting Microsoft's revenue, 70% on sales lost. Based on where Call of Duty falls on the charts, I think conservative annual sales figures on PlayStation is 10 million units, mostly at full retail. This is $420 million in revenue to offset for Microsoft, plus a loss of Sony's 30% cut, equating to $180 million. Net that out, and it's $600 million to put Call of Duty on PS Plus. The cost of 4 to 5 AAA games every year in perpetuity. I can't see Sony eating that on an annual basis, especially when they are driving no new players to PS Plus, since it's already required for online play. Curious to your thoughts as if you think my sales or assumptions are overstated. I can speak to this, Robert, a little bit, just in that if you go and read the paperwork that the CMA and the European Union were going over in regard to the Activision Microsoft deal, you'll find that the numbers are redacted, but that Microsoft had offered Sony, I guess explicitly, access to Call of Duty on PlayStation Plus, but that the number was unsustainable. So while I think your numbers are really high, I don't think that they need to be this high to be unsustainable. And I think Sony was kind of presenting that as a dead end because that's not really a practical deal for them to accept, I guess, within the cost parameters of how they run PlayStation Plus right now. It came up on my conversation with Hogue that I would love to see Sony make a move where they're like, fine, we'll take you up on that offer. Because remember, Microsoft took Sony up, or took the MLB and Sony up on the offer of bringing MLB The Show to Game Pass, and they haven't sold it for 1 second. Apart from, on Game Pass, they'll sell it to people a la carte. Those sales are not even counted actually in NPD sales numbers for some unknown reason. But that's a Game Pass game. And they forwent their 30% and are paying a premium to get that game on Game Pass. Now, of course, it's not going to be as cheap to get Call of Duty, but there is some number per unit that would make sense. And I think it's something probably, like, I don't know what the deal would be, 20 or 30 or $40 a unit. I don't know. Some wholesale style unit number, but that would keep the cost lower. But I don't think it's practical at all. That's Sony's argument, though. And that's why I wanted to bring up your letter, was that Sony argued in their failed arguments to the CMA that the numbers Microsoft are throwing at them for potential on PlayStation Plus with Call of Duty are simply unsustainable. It's like not a non-starter for them. So I think your instincts that this is simply unsustainably expensive is right on the money. Nikolai Casio wrote in and said, I have never played Final Fantasy ever. With the pixel remasters upon us, should I just start with number 1 and go through the whole series in order? I personally think yes, but I'm not the arbiter of your time. What do you think, Dustin? Because you're jumping in. You've not played these games, right? So you're gonna not play from number 1.
No, I don't know. The earlier ones, I need to do more research because I know they're pretty basic in terms of their story. I mean, it was a much more primitive time with them being NES games. So I mean, I personally wouldn't recommend starting there, just because if you've never played Final Fantasy before, you might not like those earlier, more basic games. I don't know where you should start, though. I mean, you could start with 6, since that's the one that you're most likely to like most, I would say. But then it might be harder to go back if you do enjoy that. To go back and play 4 or 3 or something like that. But if you're really into it, then it might not be a problem. And I'm curious about some of the other modern enhancements. Because that's the thing for me where I kind of want to play one just to check it out, but I don't necessarily like the idea of going back to a game that old. But if they have all the XP grinding stuff that you can turn on the menus, then maybe I will check it out just for fun. But so Colin, you're saying that if he's never played a Final Fantasy to go straight into one?
Yeah, I wouldn't think so. I mean, I think it depends on your tolerance for Japanese role-playing games, but
yeah,
my problem with going to 6 or 4 first is that it's just going to be harder to go backwards. There's no doubt those games are better. I mean, if you want to get right into the meat and potatoes, then you go to those 2 games and you probably don't even have to play anything else. But I think if you want to have like a holistic Final Fantasy experience, experiencing them, especially blind in order, I think is awesome. And that's the way Dagan and I are hopefully going to cover all of the games on Knockback, although we're not going in blind because we've played all these games many times. But I personally, when the Pixel remasters are coming out, and they're going to come out by the time we meet again for 251, for episode 251, the games will be out on PlayStation 4. I'm going to start with number 1, and I'm going to earn number 6 with number 4 and number 5, especially number 4 as a nice little prelude as I get up to them. But that's my personal opinion. I just think it's a matter of, if you want to get like that really, first of all, though, it's cheaper. I think save $20 if you buy them all together as if you bought them all separately. So there's that. But I also think that if you are going in with the mindset of understanding Final Fantasy, I think you got to go to the beginning. And I think the first Final Fantasy game is really fun. I just think it's very Dragon Quest. It is what it is. You know, I'll be very curious to see how they reworked it in any way. Soon enough. Finally, a phalanx of Brumax wrote in and said, "Hello, Sacred Fellows. I had a quick question about a new application of NFTs I thought you might all find interesting. I recently purchased tickets for the newly announced Avenged Sevenfold tour, and in order to stop bots and resellers, each ticket required the submission of a free NFT the band had produced. They partnered with a company to create these free tokens to verify an actual person was on the other side of the transaction, and it prevents one person from buying an absurd number of tickets to resell. This was the first usage of any kind of NFT implementation that actually impressed me. My question is, how easily could this be applied to new hardware in the gaming market? Even if we're out of the low inventory woods of the PS5, this could save a lot of headaches down the road. Godspeed to demolishing that chicken. Thank you, a Phalanx of Brumax, for writing in." That last inquiry aside, which we can get into, my one thought here is, and I was wondering if you guys can kind of field this however you like, Chris. I'm wondering, why would that have to be an NFT?
Yeah,
why couldn't it be like a code, like a randomized code that was emailed to you or something?
This is the problem with it. It's like I still have yet to. I've yet to even have someone truly explain to me what this even is. You know, even still, like as this far into the life cycle of these things, I've heard every definition. I still don't understand it. I don't understand why this needs to be an NFT. This seems like a confirmation code, which I get with everything that I purchase of a certain value or more.
Yeah, it's like two-factor authentication. That's the whole thing. Is like, why couldn't that just be a 2-factor authentication? Like, we're going to text your phone number now. I guess people have these farms of phones and all these things that can be worked around, but don't you have to be a pretty sophisticated actor to do that kind of stuff? I don't know. Maybe I'm answering my own question. What do you think, Dustin?
Yeah, there's a lot more to this Avenged Sevenfold NFT business. I saw our friend of the show, Finn McKenty, tweeted about this, where I first learned about it. And they're doing a whole thing where they're applying that basically if you buy their merchandise, if you listen to their stuff on Spotify, those all come with these tokens. And eventually, if I'm remembering correctly from the video, they want to offer different tiers that if you have X amount of Avenged Sevenfold tokens, that you are in the first batch of tickets that go out. And then there's a tier system, which I kind of don't like, that you need to prove how big of a fan you are in order to get access to the best tickets, because there's plenty of bands that I absolutely love that I don't own any of their merch. I might not even own a record or any physical thing. And what if you don't use Spotify? What if you use Apple Music? What if you use YouTube Music? There are other ways to solve this problem, as Chris was saying. There are other ways that we can deal with this, I think, that can fix this whole scalping situation. And the write-in talks about it, how it could apply to consoles and buying those. And to me, it's just like, again, whether it's a cell phone verification, a number, maybe you need to verify your credit card in order to be able to buy something. There are ways we can solve this problem without the blockchain, in my opinion. I don't know. Maybe we're ignorant, but I really have not found a compelling argument against that.
I think I am ignorant of it, but I've said that going all the way back to Fireside Chats 5 years ago when I had someone from Library, which is a huge, I don't know if they're still around, but like a huge blockchain thing, just come and explain it to me. And I still don't get it really. And I get the premise of it. I understand how it kind of functions at a baseline, but I don't know what problems it solves. It really seems like the only thing that come out of cryptocurrency and NFTs and all of these, and I know that they're separated and they're camps with both. And I've certainly noticed that Bitcoin has gone up substantially in price over the last few months as well. I think it's back up to like $30,000 or whatever, which is very interesting. But I think it's just really wishing into existence a parallel economy that doesn't quite exist yet and may never exist at all. And I still think that for the time being, your fiat currency is probably the safest thing because at least there's like governments and militaries backing it up. But it all feels quite built on quicksand when you think about it. And I agree with this. I know it's to ostensibly avoid predation and as far as sophisticated technical actors taking advantage of basic things. But I just feel like, we already have a George in this sense. All right, my friends, it's time to get going. That's it for this episode, this 250th episode of Sacred Symbols of PlayStation podcast. I hope you all enjoyed it out there. Thank you so much for your love, kindness, and support. Chris, do you have any closing comments?
No, man. I got to get ready for my flight.
Yeah, man.
So.
Good luck to you.
Thank you.
We're excited to see it. That's that'll already. Well, no, this will go live the day before it happens on Patreon. But by the time you hear this on Free Feeds, it will already have happened. But Godspeed and break a leg out there, and we'll be wishing you the best. And Dustin, closing comments.
Yeah, just want to say best of luck to you. Of course, Chris, Ben and I already have plans. We'll be streaming the fight. So we'll be there with you in spirit and through YouTube, however they're streaming it. I don't know. So excited to see that. And enough with the NFT write-ins. No more.
Yeah,
well,
that's
it.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
That's it.
It seems like at this point, not to bring up more NFT stuff, but it seems like the clowning on it has gotten so bad. There's like, did you see the articles? There was like, thanks, you guys ruined NFTs. There was some big headline. It's like, yeah, it's over.
Yeah, whatever.
But so Avenged Sevenfold holding on, I guess.
Yeah, I mean,
dear life.
It's really, it seems somewhat shameless at this point. Like no one can tell me why your image of an ape is valuable. It doesn't make any sense. Yeah. It doesn't make any sense. And people are like, well, it's like a painting on a wall. It's like, no, I have paintings. I have original paintings in my house right now. And by the way, there are, what'd you say?
You have a great painting in your house. I love it.
Thank you. And there are prints of it because he asked, I mean, he can do whatever he wants, but the artist made 50 prints of it and sold them. And it's like, but I have the original. I have the art. And like nothing you say is going to make me feel like that digital piece of art is the same thing. It's not. It's just not the same thing. And I still feel like $1 and a Bitcoin are not the same thing either. These represent different modes and means of value. And I still have not wrapped my mind around it, mostly because I think it is a lack of intellect in some way, but also a lack of giving a shit. Because I think that one of the last problems we have to deal with in a world of violence and fucking homelessness and all of these different things is how people can make even more money from doing nothing. That's like my last priority is the people doing nothing making money class. Mm-hmm. So time to focus on other things. But my friends, that's it. We'll see you next time for more Sacred Symbols. Until then, goodbye.
See ya.
Take care, guys.
Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast, is a product and trademark of Last Stand Media and Collins Last Stand LLC, and is proudly recorded in the USA. The show is conceived by, is written by, and is directed by me, Colin Moriarty. My co-hosts are Chris Raygun Maldonado and Dustin Furman. The show is produced by executive producer Dustin Furman. It's edited by associate producer Ben Smith. All of Last Stand's theme music is by my best friend, Ramon Narvaez. As you know, all of Last Stand's shows, including Sacred Symbols, are fan-funded on Patreon at patreon.com/laststandmedia. The following names are at the producer level on Patreon, our highest tier, and we're grateful for your thoughtful and kind contributions to our independent endeavor. Thank you.